Hey, we are at long last live. Don had a few little technicalities there. Don is Dynodon64, his YouTube channel. He's our guest that's joined us today, and he's done some experiments which he's going to talk about. We have Artist Germany, Patricia UK, and we have Yuda Israel on the panel, and me from the UK. Anyway, hello everybody.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey. I got in touch with you because Artist has been doing quite a lot of presentations, and Stan Meyers was this person that came up. Artist, do you want to explain a little bit about Stan Meyers?
Well, as far as I know is that Stan Meyers built a car that could run on water. What he explained in some presentation and also on the television back in the day was that you could drive that car with some sort of fuel injection. I don't know the details, of course, because I'm not an engineer, but what it basically he could with a small change in an engine of a car, some small changes, you could basically drive a car on a water fuel cell, and you could basically therefore drive a car on rainwater, even seawater. So you could drive a car on free liquid. That's basically the story. And the rest of the story is just before he had already those patents, and those patents are now public domain because the patent is expired, as far as I know. And he was what some people say, and what his brother was stating, if I'm correct. That's the things I wrote from the internet. So you can't really trust, of course, everything you read on the internet. But he was basically eating in a restaurant and was doing, had some context, some investors from Belgium. And he was probably poisoned because he ran outside, and then shortly thereafter he died. So a lot of reports stated that he was killed of food poisoning. That's the stories I read about him. And if you just real short, for just the people to show you that he has a patent, I will show just real quickly in the Hangout. You can probably see this. This is basically the patent of Stan Meyers, is a water fuel cell, and how it all looks. And that is my introduction. So Don, you can go ahead and tell what you are investigating on.
Okay, I first got into Stan Meyers' research a little farther yet. Back in the day when I was working at my local airport as a mechanic, I used to take trips out to Oshkosh, Wisconsin for the annual Experimental Aircraft Association's convention. And it usually comes on in like the end of July, beginning of August. While I was out there, I was always researching alternative automotive engines for aircraft use. And gentleman from Alaska, he flew in with a bush plane with a Mazda rotary car engine in it. And while I was looking at it, a couple guys come over and asked him if he'd like to speak at a forum that they had later in the day so he could talk about his plane. He's like, sure. So I go to these forums every year and listen to the people speak. His name was Rick Schneider. If you've researched any of Stan's work, his name comes up. So anyway, so I listened to the forum. He talks about his plane, and when he gets finished, he goes, I got something else to show you. And he throws this VCR tape in, the old little TV VCR combo at the day. This is like 1990, 91. And here he had a video of Stan Meyers' buggy running, and he was talking about it running on water. And he said he was working with an outfit in Columbus, Ohio, but he didn't say who. He didn't mention Stan's name. But I did remember the buggy. 2007, I started seeing stuff in the news about hydrogen being used for power in buses and stuff, how they were trying to do all that. So, excuse me. So I got to thinking, like, how do you make hydrogen from water in the first place? I didn't remember it from, science class in school. So I looked it up, and I did a search on the internet, and I came across a site called car. It's still up. And I started scrolling through there, and I saw this story about a water-powered car, Stan Meyers, and I click on it, and I start reading it, and it's like, that's the guy he was talking about. So I started reading through it a little further, and I was like, I wonder whatever happened with this guy. So I'm reading down through it, and it's like, oh man, he just died in '98, and this was a couple years later. So then ever since then, I started searching, more and more into the subject, found all the patents on another website called waterfuelcell.org, which was out of Australia, I believe, Australia or New Zealand. I've just recently checked to see if they were still around, but they're not showing up anymore. But I was able to download all of Stan's patents from there. And then I started reading the first patent I read. I'm looking at just things like, this might as well be in Chinese or German. I can't understand a word he's saying. So I am playing and watching videos and learning, and it's been a learning curve ever since.
Yesterday, that when you first saw it, it was like double Dutch, but now you understand it. A lot of what all of it. That's what you said, isn't it?
Yeah. As I read more of the patents and then looked through the pictures, because Stan Meyers, he wrote all these patents himself. He submitted them himself. Although the way they were written up was by his hands only. But I didn't understand the stuff he was talking about, and then the more I read, the more I researched, then it finally started coming together exactly what he was doing. So then, guy in waterfuelcell.org was selling videos of Stan Meyers. What do you want to call them? When he would go out and try to raise money, he'd have these lectures, a couple-hour lectures, and he would explain his process from start to finish. So I bought these guy and watched them, and then it's just a matter of more and more research until I finally started seeing what he was doing, and it just makes sense of what he was doing.
Just before you go any further, I hear a big echo at the moment. So when you're talking,
it was me, Artis. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
My live feed started playing just for a second.
It was just slightly.
No, it's gone now. It was me. Sorry. Carry on.
Okay, carry on, Don.
Sure. So the more I watched these videos, I kept watching them over and over to understand what he was doing. And then I finally caught on to what he was trying to say. And what he did is he sat down and he looked at the water molecule. And he studied it, and he tried to figure out what exactly it was that was holding the bonds together. And it's where he refers to the covalent bonds of the hydrogen and oxygen. He got to looking at it, and if you're familiar with electrolysis, normal Faraday electrolysis, it requires a DC voltage of between 1.2 and 1.5 volts. Efficiency. If you raise the voltage any higher than that, the voltage will generate more gas, but as a byproduct, it generates heat, and then the cell can get so hot to the point where it starts making water vapor steam, and then turn the efficiency way back even farther. So he's looking at it, trying to figure out a way to break the bonds of the water without this heat byproduct. And that's where he came across the idea of using voltage to perform the work instead of amperage. If he could find a way to restrict the amps flowing into the water and attenuate the voltage, then he thinks that the voltage can perform work, just like on a TV set, the old CRT, the cathode ray tube television sets of the day gone by. They use a high voltage transformer on the back end, and it fires electrons at the back of the screen. And there's no current involved, it's just real high voltage. So voltage performs work. What was the other example he liked to use? Slips in my mind. It slips in my mind right now. But anyway, he says voltage can perform work. So if he can restrict the current, reduce the voltage, at some point the voltage will create what happens with the high voltage or any voltage is the water molecule is a bipolar element, meaning it has a positive and a negative molecule, and it's balanced, it's equal. So what you have is a neutral net balance of electrical charge. There's no great positive charge, no great negative charge. The oxygen molecules have a positive charge, and the hydrogen, or negative charge, and the hydrogen has a positive charge. So by putting 2 electrodes in a bath of water and apply a DC voltage to it, the hydrogen molecule, which is a positive charge, is attracted to the negative plate, and the oxygen molecule is attracted to the positive plate, being that it's a negative. And at the same time, you have the attraction repelling forces going on. So when the hydrogen is attracted to one plate, it is being repelled by the opposite polarity. So you have a pulling and pushing force at the same time. So as you increase the voltage, the plates, eventually the shear force of the voltage potential will pull the water molecule apart. So that's what he was attempting to do from the time he started this and on up through. So over the years, you can see his progression as he went through from trying these resistive type elements and plates in the water bath to where he came up with his, what he calls the voltage intensifier circuit, which is a resonance circuit, meaning when the circuit is tuned into the dielectric of water, resonance, and then when you hit resonance with any kind of electrical voltage, the voltage will go sky high as the current drops towards zero. So, and that's what his whole goal was to tune into resonance. He kind of stumbled across the resonance thing, I think, by accident, and then once he understood what it was, then he started designing his equipment around that. So he originally went from a simple Faraday's electrolysis start, high voltage, low current, where Faraday's is low voltage, high current. So over the years, he kept going, and then up to the time he died, he actually designed what he called the water fuel injector, which would replace the spark plug in any engine. His whole premise was keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method. He wanted to be able to use the existing engines in the world today without any heavy modifications. So he was able to adapt hydrogen, oxygen, HO or hydroxy, and apply it to any internal combustion engine, including jet engines, piston engines, and as well as home heating units, everything.
So with a small modification, and ending is changing the spark plug basically with this is an invention that later on invention. You basically could change a car engine very simple into a hydrogen run engine.
Yes. The latest version that he never got to finish was essentially a modern day fuel injection circuit, but all he had to do was spark plugs out, screw in this injector, which was the water fuel cell in itself. It had a water tap going to it and a high voltage connection going to it. It would separate the gas, the water, right there at the cylinder, inject it into the cylinder, and then it was also a spark plug as well, and it would ignite it at the proper timing. And then this would all go back to basically a modern day version of a car's computer that he would program for each individual application. So it was a turnkey system. And he also had exhaust gas recirculation in there, just like modern day cars have now. So he was basically just reinventing the wheel action. But it was going to be as simple as that. And he was talking about, $1,500, you could lease this and have it installed in your car. And he was setting up what he called garages. People could buy into his business by getting a dealership, like any Chevy, Ford dealership, and then dealership and have you install these conversion kits on their car for them. So you'd make the money installing these kits as a lease. He wouldn't sell them; he'd only lease them. But then that's where he was at when he was making the deal with these two investors. They had supposedly just, when they were out celebrating, and Stan was drinking some cranberry juice and runs outside and starts throwing up and claims he'd been poisoned, and he died there in the parking lot. And the autopsy report said it was from a brain aneurysm, but there was some footnotes on the autopsy report. It was unusual circumstances in which this happened. So that's the main story of what happened.
Yeah. Donna, just before you
How
go
sad's that then? How sad's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he started this whole endeavor back in the mid '70s, back when the oil embargo was hitting the United States, and he thought that no world should have a stranglehold on America like that. So he set out to come up with an alternative energy, and he first started with solar. He actually made a solar tower in someone's backyard, and not quite sure what he was looking to do with the solar, but he was making all these little light guides to focus the sun into a specific spot. And this was a big tower. This thing was like 15 foot in diameter, 20, 30 feet high or something. He built it in a neighbor's yard, and then he went off of that and he jumped onto the hydrogen. I think he was possibly looking to use solar power to create the electricity, to do the electrolysis of the water to where he could use the hydrogen to burn and use as a fuel source. So he wanted to use something that is readily available to everybody, that doesn't cost anything, and sun and water.
Yeah, indeed. And it was great that you could basically run your car for free on rainwater.
Right.
I just want to show you. Just want to show you this clip for my channel. And then you can see that how small of a device he actually had to change those spark plugs. That you can get a grasp of how it looks, basically. Just to show you a small portion of the video. Here you can see that engine. This is from a clip, and this is basically...
Yeah, that's the water fuel injector.
Yeah, this is indeed the water fuel injector, and then you can change it around in the car.
Yeah, that whole injector is made out of stainless steel. I've got the drawings.
Like he's giving it a tune-up, like he's changing the spark plugs. Was that what he was doing?
It replaces the spark plug.
Oh, really?
The stock spark plug out and you screw that in. That is your fuel injector and spark plug all built into one.
Was it working on the 07 Impala?
That Joe's joined. Joe, Don Joe, by the way. Just that's you talking to.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Don.
Yeah, this was made to work on everything, even diesel engines. It would replace the standard injector on a diesel. Really? Aircraft engines too. Yeah, he was looking at installing them on jet aircraft, home heating. There was going to be separate departments, one for the aviation industry, which was Rick Snyder, and then there was going to be a home heating unit system, and then there was going to be the automotive system.
I bet you the cost of the R to get one. They look expensive.
Anything that burned any kind of petroleum fuel, he was looking at supplying.
You know what I'm saying? It looks expensive. I bet you had to pay all type of money to get that. I mean, like spark plugs are expensive.
Yeah, for the car conversions, he was talking $1,500.
God, that's a whole new car, man. This like about 6 car payments, depending on the type of car you get.
And if it had taken off, it wouldn't have been that expensive now.
Yeah, that was numbers from the 90s, roughly.
Yeah. And also, you have to bear in mind, if you change your car, after that you can drive your car for free on water, on rainwater.
Right. Yeah.
And you will get your money back in maybe even a year, because you can drive your car for free on rainwater. So it's an investment, but after that you can drive your car for free.
Yeah, you could use rainwater, well water, tap water, lake water, creek water, city water, even ocean salt water would work, but it would require more because when the process takes, when you're doing the electrolysis, only the gases come out. So anything that's in impurities that are in the water will eventually end up staying in the cell and creating, sludge and stuff. So, but he designed an electrostatic filter, where the system would flush through this filter, and he uses to pull the impurities out of the water. It's an electrostatic filter. And he had a thing that would heat the water up in cold weather, winter times, to keep it from freezing in the winter. He had a special unit designed to go right in the fuel tank. He had, and because hydrogen burns so fast, and this hydrogen-oxygen mix is so volatile, just a small coffee cup full of that stuff, if you light it with a match, explodes instantaneously and will blow your eardrums out. It's so volatile. And he even designed meant to slow down the burn rate of the hydrogen by reintroducing burnt exhaust gases, what he would call non-combustible gases. He would mix it back in with that, and he could literally slow the burn rate down to smoldering leaves if he wanted to. How much exhaust gas recirculation was put back into it. But you could adjust the power output of the system for any vehicle, any size engine, through the computer programming.
One of the things that shocked, I don't know if it actually shocked artists, but it shocked me. I mean, I had to think back, and then someone's like, yeah, we did have electric floats for the milk. You know, we had those. They were electric. And then when artist suddenly was looking into this, he found company after company before the Second World War of these free energy, everything was. We were really geared up that way.
Well, I can give an example, basically, if you want to. Here you have an old newspaper article, so I have proof. That's always handy, of course, to have proof. And if you zoom into this, here, this is a newspaper, the Times Dispatch, Richmond, VA, Tuesday, September the 13th, in 1910. So this is 1910. So that is 108 years ago. And then there was another world record for Baker Electric's 201.6 mile on one single charge for an electric car run on an Edison battery.
Yeah.
So the fairy tale that you
that.
can't. No, the fairy tale that you can't drive very far with an electric car. They tell you, well, maybe 100 miles, maybe. Well, even back in the day, and you have to imagine, this car was heavy as shit. Probably twice the weight of a normal car today. And they already could drive this far.
Wow.
And even back in the day, in 1920, you even had an hybrid car. Hybrid cars were already there in the 1920s. That would run on electric and also a gasoline. So
do you know what the first internal combustion engine ran on when it was made?
Tell us.
Hydrogen.
Okay.
There was no petrol, no petroleum products at the time, so the very first internal combustion engine ran on hydrogen.
Okay. And what is also interesting, now that I'm already showing something at the moment, what is also a patent, maybe you never saw that patent. It's not the right one, just a second. Just a moment, I have to change. I have another one. This is basically, I don't know if you ever saw this one. Just after this, you can go further with your talk, of course. This is also a car that you could drive on a wind turbine. Did you ever saw that one?
I think I saw it when you were just talking about it, and I made the comment on your Hangout.
Are you going to show us, Artie?
I'm just looking for the link. Just a moment, if you.
I'd seen the picture that you posted before on it. I'd never seen that before either. But that looking at that, first thing that comes to mind to me is the wind drag. The problem with trying to spin any kind of generator off of either running off the wheels or roads when you're moving in the wind, it all puts drag on the motor and makes the motor burn more fuel. It's a it never, you can never gain more than you use. You know, it's not an over unity type thing. You'll always get less in than you put out less than you take in.
Okay.
Yeah, that big thing on the roof of that car would be a humongous drag on the air. Shoots aerodynamics all to hell.
Yeah, it's not very aerodynamic. That's right. Yeah.
No,
It's a
but
big unit.
say they decided to go that way, it would be a lot better now, wouldn't it? And it wouldn't be a great big bulky thing. It would be much.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah,
I'm sure if you'd given us a choice, or what we know today, that if they said,
yeah.
you make the cars like this, you know, for
Right. They would have taken the time to. I say if they would have taken the time to research that kind of technology 100 years ago, we'd probably have it today to where it would work.
But they did have it.
Well, I mean, but if they would have perfected it, if they would have stayed on it and not straight off to petroleum, then we would
Well,
have
we
been
had
farther.
the First World War and then the Second World War, and then we came out of that with oil, petrol, televisions, NASA, the globe.
Right. But yeah, if they would have stayed on that track when they started like that in the day, then we'd probably all be driving electric cars today.
I think we would.
Also in the 90s, you had that AV car that they on purposely made sure that it did not succeed. There was a big documentary also about how they killed the electric car. And then I think in 1995, there was a car called the AV or Avion or something like that. And it was from General Motors. And also a lot of Mel Gibson was driving that car, and some other well-known actors were driving that car, and it worked perfectly. But they also
Jack Nicholson, wasn't it? Jack Nicholson had an electric car.
Yeah, and they made it fail on purpose. You have some details that how they made it fail on purpose, but they made sure it failed.
Right.
All kinds of ways, of course. So they could say afterward, well, we tried an electric car, but it didn't succeed. Yeah, they make sure it didn't succeed. That actually in that documentary of how they, the documentary that shows very clear that they did it on purpose.
Yeah. The other thing that they buried the technology on was the fuel vapor carburetors that would get you 200 miles to the gallon with gasoline. They came in and literally squashed that industry as well. There's several people that built vapor carburetors. Run any engine, anything that uses fuel. Liquid fuels don't burn. Only the vapors coming off of the fuels burn. So when a liquid fuel gets hot, it vaporizes, and it's the vapor that burns. And if you're squirting fuel into an engine in liquid form, it'll start vaporizing, but it'll burn and flash real quick, and some of that won't vaporize all the way, so it ends up going out your tailpipe. And that's where the inefficiency comes. But if you can take the fuel and vaporize it 100% and burn it, sure, you can get 200, 300 miles to the gallon easily. Mm-hmm. But they don't want you doing that. And that's when they started adding all kinds of additives into the fuel, vaporizing, so you couldn't use those carbs anymore. It would just make them gum up, and you'd have to tear them apart all the time to keep them clean.
Yep. Yeah, what I would also want to show when we were talking about inventions that were not that already were there. Here it is: the Woods dual-powered car, gasoline and electric combined. The Woods dual-powered combines gasoline and electricity in a marvelous two-power automobile. An electric, simply elegance converts a gasoline car in the speed of unlimited mileage. And it's actually a newspaper from Sunday, March 32nd, 1917. So in the 1970s, they already had a hybrid car that run on gasoline and electric combined.
Have you ever seen the wood fuel cars where they burn wood and use the soot from the wood as a fuel to run on. You ever seen that?
No, I've never seen it. I've heard about it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've looked at it briefly, but yeah, they're basically just burning the carbon that's coming off of the flame from the wood.
Okay.
So they had all kinds of ideas back in those days, and nowadays they just squash anybody that tries anything.
Yeah, indeed.
They don't want us to get away from petroleum.
Yeah, that's very clear. You can also talk about your what you are inventing yourself now, if you like to.
My experiments.
Yeah, your experiments. Yeah.
This work. If you know anything or don't know anything about what Stan Meyers had done, his original, if you've seen his multi-tube cell in the clear plastic plexiglass container, where he's electric motor spinning an alternator, and then he adjusts the controls on this black box, and he gets all this hydrogen gas pouring out the top. That was his demonstration cells to convince the patent office to prove what he said he was doing. Okay, well that is what was. People think that was a resonance system, but it's not a resonance system. It was strictly an amp circuit. He was restricting the current and allowing more voltage to go to the cell and pull make the water molecule fall apart. But it was a combination of electricity with a lower current to produce better. And he was running this at kind of a set frequency, because the alternator spinning at a constant speed will generate a specific frequency. It's like 120 hertz. But he was able to make quite a bit of gas with that, and that's what he originally ran to run on. As you see the video, he's in his driveway, and he's got the cell sitting there on the ground plugged into the wall power running, and then the gas was going into the buggy, and he's standing there watching his watch. His wife's standing there, and I think Charlie Holbrook is with him. So that's the first time he ever got the engine running on hydrogen. And he's down there sniffing the exhaust because there's no smell. It's pure water vapor output. Well, that's his first cell, and then he went into a second cell where he used two plates, plexiglass cylinder. They were like 3 inches wide, about 12 inches high. And then he started experimenting with gaps spacing between the plates. What distance gave you the most efficiency? And then that was also an amp restricting circuit. But then at some point from there on, as he kept trying to restrict amps more and more, the more you can restrict the amps, the more the voltage will attenuate towards infinity, as he says. The goal is to get as high a voltage across that water as you can. And with water is it's highly conductive in its natural state. So if you stick 2 electrodes in the water and try to put 1,000 volts to it, it will just dead short, and it'll just suck all the voltage out of it. So he had to design electronic circuits, the current from flowing, but allow the voltage to attenuate to high levels. So as he went through, he came across what he calls the resonance circuit, where it was you taking DC is a straight current. There's you got 12 volts car battery. It's just a straight line voltage if you check it on the oscilloscope. AC power that goes to your house, like over there in Europe, you guys run 50 hertz. That's 50 cycles per second that it switches between positive and negative. And over here in the States, we have 60 hertz. AC can't be used for electrolysis. It doesn't work. All it will do is flip the water molecule back and forth and make heat and steam and hot water. So to restrict current, he found out that he needs to turn on and off the voltage supply. And by cycling the power on and off, it doesn't give the current enough time to flow, but voltage will flow through very quickly, but current will lag 90 degrees. So if you turn it on and turn it off at the right time, you can kind of restrict it. So that works for a little ways. And then eventually came up with what he would call the VIC, the voltage intensifier circuit, which consisted of a primary winding and 2 choke coils. And then he had a diode in there, which he called a blocking diode. And then he had your water cell, what he called the water fuel cell, which is the 2 metal plates or tubes in there power. And then by tuning into the resonant frequency of this circuit, you have all the windings, the coils, little windings of copper wire on this, either a ferrite core, iron core, or magnetic core. It's simply just a transformer with 4 separate windings, primary, secondary, positive, negative choke coils is what he calls them. The windings and coils are what are known as inductors. And then the water fuel cell is a capacitor. Plates with a dielectric medium in between them forms a capacitor. And then in this case, the water is the dielectric medium source, like paper or plastic. So the plates will take on a charge like a capacitor. A capacitor is like a battery, but it charges extremely fast and it discharges extremely fast. It won't hold a long charge like a lead acid battery does. So he called it a voltage intensifier circuit, and then it was pulsed at a frequency. You had a frequency generator that would generally work in the range of a couple hundred hertz to 10 to 20,000 hertz. So it was frequency by today's standards. We're in the gigahertz now with frequencies, but it's very low and it's cheap and easy to build. So with that circuit, inductor and a capacitor in an electric circuit, you are forming what is called an LC circuit, which is an inductive capacitance circuit. And what happens is when you hit the cell with a charge of the primary coil and you turn it on, it charges the primary coil, and then the pulse stops. It transfers the pulse to the secondary coil, and then the secondary coil also transmits. And that's how transformers work, is by the on and off switching. If you just turn it on, the primary coil just stays on and it'll heat up. It won't do anything. Only when it turns off, the electrical field collapses and causes a magnetic flux through the core and transfers the energy from the primary to the output of the secondaries. So that's how all transformers operate. So by pulsing this thing, inductors will charge up first, and when the pulse stops, the inductors will discharge into the water capacitor, and then it'll take the charge and it'll charge up, and then it will discharge back into the coils again, and this process will go back and forth. Resistance in these circuits, due to the resistance of the copper wire used for the coils and the water and everything, if you just hit the thing with like one pulse of power, you give it a pulse, it turns on and off, this coil and capacitor will go back and forth until the voltage drops to 0. And if you can watch that, what they would call a ping, you do a little ping on the circuit with one pulse, those on an oscilloscope, and you can see this little sine wave form, and it will ring. It'll cause a ringing because this thing's charging and discharging back and forth very quickly, and it'll happen at a frequency. That is the resonant frequency of that capacitor and that inductor. So by having a frequency box where you can adjust frequencies, you can tune into the frequency watching it on an oscilloscope, and it's very easy to find. And once you get to that point, we put in like 1 volt, and when you hit resonance where this thing is back and forth continually, and you time in your pulses with it to match, that 1 volt can end up hitting 100 volts easy. It's a resonance condition, and the whole circuit works on resonance. And once he came across that and stumbled upon that, then once you hit resonance and you get enough voltage across the cell, the water molecule just falls apart and it just explodes with gas output. Gas output. And by adjusting your input voltages and adjusting the pulses that you hit the pulse, you can hit the cell with 100 pulses or hit it with 1 pulse or 10 pulse. You can put of the gas flow once you attain this resonance state. And that's where my experiments for my videos on YouTube go. My very last video on YouTube, I show that I'm hitting close to 1,000 volts across the water with the cell. Was that you're going to need between 1,200 and 1,500 volts to get that water molecule to fall apart, like Stan says. That's where you've got the attraction and repelling forces are so great that the water molecule can no longer stay together just because of the static electrical charge on these plates doing your attraction repelling forces on the water molecule, and it just falls apart. And then and he's talking about converting like 5 gallons per hour, and that's an ungodly amount of hydrogen gas. Ungodly amounts. Any questions so far?
You said
Wow.
that the electricity over water, was it already magnified by the water, or that was without? Cause you know how electricity can travel through water faster, right, than it
Yeah,
can
water.
air. I want to say.
Yeah, water is conductive. Yeah, it can travel through, water faster, solids faster, metals than it will through air. Air is your dielectric medium, and it's a really high dielectric to where it takes extreme high voltage for it to arc across a couple of plates, any kind of spark gap, you could say. But yeah, that's the whole thing with this circuit that he designed, is by tuning it into resonance, he was able to put this higher voltage to the water without it short circuiting. So that was the whole premise of this resonance cell. Once he got around that and high
That's awesome.
voltage to pull the water apart instead of low voltage. Faraday's law said, 1.5 volts and amps. So let's say, I'll give you an example. Faraday's, say you got a circuit that, this magic control box that can regulate the voltage and current to 10 watts of power output. That's it. So if we put in 10 amps of power with 1 watt or 1 volt, that's 10 watts. Okay, so if we flip that formula around and we put in 1 amp or 10 volts, 1 amp is 10 watts, or 1 volt at 10 amps is 10 watts. So if you can put in, if you take that 1 volt now and drop it down to 0.1 volt, 0.1 amp, go from 1 amp to 0.1 amp, now you can generate 100 volts and still be 10 watts output. And you can just keep doing that to 0.01 or 0.001, 1/1000th of an amp, and you could have potentially 1,000 volts across the cell. So Stan, everyone said, "Oh, you're talking over unity. You can't do that. You can't go over unity." He said, "No, it's not over unity. Power, he's just restricting the amps so low that the voltage is attenuating, but the wattage usage is still the same. It's not over unity. The power is coming from the water. Water contains the power. He's using the energy of water to create the gas. It's not over unity, because once the water is all used up, the process stops and it's done. So you are consuming water as the So it's not over unity. Over unity, you burn the water, recollect it, burn water, recollect it, and you keep that cycle going. That would be over unity, or you get out more than you put in. In this case, that's not happening. It still falls under the laws of thermodynamics.
So I have a question. Like someone, Angel Raven in 444 in the chat, kind of made an interesting point. She says, electric cars are a scam. They have to be plugged in. Cars have alternators or self-charging systems. Why don't they do the same for electrics? I guess for electric cars.
I know what
So
she's saying. She's saying,
electric cars
well,
don't have alternators, or do they have some type of
yeah, yeah,
alternating thing for the electric current, or?
yeah. I know where she's going with this. She's saying, why can't you have an electric motor that, when it's running, turn a generator that would in turn turn back around, supply power back to the electric motor, and keep it going?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work because there's always losses involved in the process. You cannot put an alternator on an electric motor, spin the motor, which will turn the alternator on, and the alternator will supply the power to feed the motor. Well, there's a loss involved in there all the time. Alternators are not 100% efficient. The electric motor's not 100% efficient. So you say, all right, we'll put a bigger alternator on it. A bigger alternator will supply more power to the motor. Well, the bigger alternator takes more power to turn than the motor can put out. So it's a law of diminishing returns. it won't work.
Mhm.
Because
Alternators are not fun either. I've had to change a few of them. There's not
yeah,
not a fun. It's not a fun. It's easy, but it's not a fun task.
well, I think alternators might only be in the range of 70 to 80% efficient, meaning
Mhm.
the power it takes to spin them to generate the power voltage output, you're only getting 70 to 80% out of it. Power in, only getting 70 to 80% out, so it's not enough to keep the circuit going because of
That was a good
thermodynamics.
answer. I didn't think about that. I was like, well, when I read her comment, I kind of think of the same thing. Like, yeah, why wouldn't they have some type of alternating device for an electric car? But I'm glad you kind of explained.
Yeah, every vehicle, every car has an alternator. That's what keeps your battery charged. That's what makes everything electrically run. Without it, the battery would go dead and the car would die. Even if it runs on gasoline, it would still die because it requires electricity to run all the electronics on modern days. Now, if you had a like an old time magneto on the engine, the magnetos are self-contained. They generate their own electricity. That's how airplane engines, piston engines work. They use the electrical system, the engine won't stop running. It'll keep running because it's not relying on electrical power from an alternator. The alternator is for the electricity to run all the electrical components in the aircraft.
So I couldn't get back quick enough. Something else that you said that you didn't meet Stan, but you happened to sell some of the stuff.
Yeah, what happened was after Stan died in '98, because he had so many investors had put money into this outfit that they ended up putting everything into probate. The courts came in and locked it down, and until they decided what to do with it. And then I think they had the hearings and all that, and then they decided that people had invested into this. His wife, his widow, was still entitled to it. So after like 5 years of this probate, she ends up inheriting it. Well, then she sat on it for a while, and then people had come out to her and wanted to buy it and continue to work and this and that, and nobody ever came to any arrangements. So when she died, I can't remember how many years later she died. She had left it in a will to Charlie Holbrook, which was the guy, when you watch the video of the buggy running down the road, you see the guy hanging on the side. He was back there controlling the gas output of the cell because he had the early version unit on there. That was Charlie. Well, he ended up getting it as a inherited, from when she passed on. It was willed to him. And then he had it and sat on it, didn't do anything with it. Around with a few things and stuff, and then he passed away like 2 months before I started looking for the buggy. And the first place I wanted to look was Charlie Holbrook because that was his right hand man. And then I found out that he died just 2 months prior to me looking for it. But I ended up finding Charlie's son, David, and so I called up and says, "Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm trying to find this buggy of Stan Meyers." So he's like, "Well, who are you? Interested in buying it?" And see if I could find it. He says, "Well, I have it." I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Can I come see it?" And he didn't know who I was, and he's like, "I don't know." He says, "I'm." And then I found out he was trying to sell it. So he's the family, the remaining him and his brother and his sisters were trying to find someone to buy this thing and continue the work. And he wanted, a piece of the pie if they ever did get something done. They wanted, what do you call it? They wanted a little bit of whatever they made from it. So as I kept calling and talking to him, got to be friends with him, and I explained to him, what some of this stuff did, because he had no idea how it worked. He was a bricklayer by trade, so he had no clue. But he says, "I remember when I was young helping Stan make all these little light guides with all these chemicals, like epoxy and stuff." He goes, "I thought I was going to get cancer from that stuff we were playing with." But he helped Stan when he was real young. So David and them decided to sell it, get rid of it. So he had the word out, but I'd never heard about it. I'm sure you're familiar with the Orion project with Stephen Greer. Put a bid in on it to buy it. Came out to look at it 2 different times, and as I got to become friends with Dave, he let me come down and then he let me see the buggy. Brought another friend with me that was helping me look for him at the time. So we got to see all the stuff that was left after he died. And then seeing what he had, there was a lot of stuff that was missing somewhere along the lines. It got picked up, taken, or who knows what. But the more I talked with Dave, the more he got to trust me. And then he actually started to let me bring some of these units home to test them and see if they're working correctly. Well, the one that everyone's familiar with all the single little tube sets in there and the tall cell with the alternator and the black box, I brought that home, and when I was looking at it, when they turned it on down there to show me how it worked, I was like, that don't look right, don't sound right. Alternator. And then what had happened was Charlie, his dad, was playing with it, showing somebody, and he turned the power up too high and he burned out the alternator. So they took the alternator off and took it to a repair shop, and they just gave him a stock alternator back and they put it back on the system. So now you're back to normal Faraday's electrolysis. That alternator was a specially wound and crafted piece that Stan made. So original alternator.
It was a custom made one.
Yeah, he custom wound that himself with internal choke coils and primary, secondary choke coils. It had special diode arrangements in there. I've pretty much gotten it figured out how it was wired now. Multiple windings in there. It was a very specific special alternator that was designed to do one thing, and it got burned up and lost. He should have never gotten rid of it, but he thought it was just regular alternator, but it wasn't.
Oh, that's too bad indeed.
Yeah, that system no longer performed like it used to. And then the instructions on how Stan wound that ended in all the archives. But I was there for a weekend with David going through everything. And I mean, there was to go through all the paperwork that Stan had there. And then he had like 7 different Apple computers with data in them. And they all were linked together like a network. And they were trying to get them on and password protected and get all the files, but he just had so much paperwork. He had stuff in there on Tesla and all the other around the world on hydrogen production, and we just sat there for days just going through this stuff trying to find some hidden gem in there. But if Stan had some, he had it hidden or it was in his head. So, but everything that was there, and there was a lot of stuff.
It could also indeed be that it was in his head that he wanted to protect his invention a bit.
Yeah, well, studying his patents, especially the ones for the voltage intensifier circuit, the resonance system, I've everything that he says in the patents and then the tech brief. Are you familiar with the tech brief? It's called the tech brief. It's like a 100, 200 page document that talks about every one of his systems. It's all in this big tech brief.
And that is part of the patent?
No, it's not a patent. It's called a tech brief. It's a 100, 200 page document that goes over all the demonstration cells all the way up through the resonant cavity cells, all the way up through the water fuel injector. It's in one binding. Now it shows schematics, but in the schematics it doesn't have any chip names or values of anything. It's just a schematic drawing, so you don't know what the values of the resistors are, the capacitors and diodes and all this and that. But finding out, we did find the master catalog, the master manual that had all that information. It was a book about 3 inches thick. I found that, I was like, oh goodness, man, this is what we've been looking for. And that was right at the point when he sold the unit, sold everything.
Also with that manual included, basically.
Yeah, everything. They took everything.
Ah, that's a shame. He didn't make a copy of it.
This was like the last couple days I'd seen the buggy. We found the book. But Well, from my time of Dave letting me bring this stuff back to my house. Now, see, I live in Pennsylvania. He lived in Grove. It was Washington Courthouse, Ohio, is where Dave lives, and it was a 4-hour drive one way. See him almost like every weekend for months at a time. So, 8-hour round trip. There's times that I went down there and I spent the night, he'd sleep on his couch, and we'd go through stuff the whole weekend. I come back home Sunday night. But he started letting me bring these units home, and that's where I took all the pictures of everything. I took stuff apart. I took all the circuit boards out. I took front and back of every single board, every single wire, I pulled the cells apart, took the tubes off the outside cover, and took pictures of the demonstration cells, measured everything, documented everything I could, even the resonant cavities.
You actually know who it was sold to or not?
He had no idea how it worked. He was, like I said,
it was sold to the whole thing was sold, but do you actually know who? You don't have to say the name, of course, who he sold it to.
Yeah, it's out there. It went to a company called Quad City Innovations in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh.
And the last I heard was they moved it to Canada. Not. But as of 2000 and had to be maybe 12, I went to a conference of this Iron D Max Miller had a conference down there he lives out there in close to Grove City, Ohio, and he did a conference, and I went there, and I see this guy that showed up at the conference, and I'm looking at him, I was like, I know him from somewhere. So at the end of the day, I go over and talk to him. I recognize you from somewhere. Where is it? He goes, yeah, I'm from QCI. You met us up in Detroit. I said, oh, yeah, because he never said a word the whole time he was there. And he's telling me, he says, we haven't figured it out yet. Who's coming? I come here to see if anybody might know something that can help us. He goes, he doesn't know how it works yet. And they'd had it for a few years at that point. But that was the last I known that they had it, and that was, years ago. So where it's at now, I just went on to that water-powered car site after talking with Karen, and they said someone's stating that it's in Canada now.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything on it since.
So, Don, you've talked a lot about Stan and things. So what did you do then? Because obviously you tried this experiment yourself, didn't you?
Oh yeah, everyone's trying to replicate it. Well, where I was getting at about bringing the stuff home and studying it and following it and looking at what Stan says in all his videos and the patents, I come to realize that everything he said was true. It was accurate. Everything he said that it would do, that how it worked, was exactly what he was doing when he did it. So it kind of leads you to believe that somehow this does work. I'd never got it to work the way he said. I've never talked to anybody that's knew Stan at the time when he was alive that met him. I've met a few guys that were around when he was alive, but they had never seen this voltage intensifier circuit actually working. There was a claim that they had the fuel injector, the last unit. They showed, there were some pictures there of these guys celebrating, and they said, no, this is when Stan got the fuel injector working. They were celebrating and it worked. And the injector will not work unless the voltage intensifier circuit works. That's the key to everything. And this is just a drop in the bucket of the technology that he had going forward. Not only was he going to produce the hydrogen gas to run, when you pull a water molecule apart, the hydrogen is linked to the oxygen molecules by 2 electrons. And when you pull the water molecule apart, those 2 electrons get liberated into the water bath. So you have electrons floating in there, which is electricity. And he designed a circuit that when the pulses were on, creating gas, and then the pulses stopped, another circuit was kicking on and it was pulling those electrons out. So not only was he making gas, he was also producing electricity. And then that electricity could be turned right back around and run to the pulsing circuit to keep the circuit running, to where once he started producing gas, he could disconnect the power from the battery source that was running it, and the system would run on its own, self-contained, until it ran out of water. As he was going even farther with it, he could take that electricity out, and then he would take the water, hydrogen, oxygen molecules, and he was taking it down into the almost a nuclear reaction. He was hitting it with like over 20,000 volts, where he's starting to ionize the gases, and now he's atomic energy out of this thing, to where he would say that a gallon of water could take a 1,000 car train around the world, 100 times or something. It was 1 gallon on 1 gallon of water, because he was taking it all the way down to the atomic level. So, but none of that is possible unless you can get that high voltage intensifying circuit to function properly. Without that, you couldn't do it. And then he also had a system, if you looked into it, it was called a copper rings tubing, that he had a magnetized gas inside of it. It was like an argon gas, or something argon with some metal particles in it, to where it was making a lattice chain of gas metal particles, and he would circulate this thing through this tubing. It's closed like a coil of copper tubing, like 3-4 coils of copper half-inch tubing, and it would come back, and the ends would link them together, and they'd hook it up to a little pump that would circulate the gas. And as this gas would flow through, the outside of the copper tubes were wrapped with wire, electrical wire, and as the particles flow through the tubing and through these coils of wires, they would generate electricity. So it was a really efficient electrical generator running on just a couple volts of power. It was a closed loop system. He just kept designing system after system. He never stopped designing. It seemed like he never finished one project before he'd start another. But everything after the point of finding this voltage intensifier circuit, everything that he says, I don't see no reason it won't happen. Everything he said that was possible should be possible, but the problem is getting to that point of making the circuit perform what he said, and that's where I was at with all my experiments. But everything that I found out experimenting, he said would happen, and it does happen. It's just that I just didn't get to that. You really need to be in transformers. With modern day electronics and transformers, the things I'm winding up are huge coils of wire by today's standards. Today's standards, these things be the size of a smaller than a dime, and you can make thousands of volts with them. If you could get somebody that really knows transformer actions, and you could design this thing, and you could probably get it working, because everybody playing with it was up to the point where I was at, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. People have caught up to where I was, and I mean, it works. There was time I'm playing with it, and I'm winding these coils by hand, wrapping more and more wire. The more wire you wrap into a coil, the greater the potential of the voltage output is. But the little ferrite cores, little powdered metal cores that you put these coil wire on, they have to. And I got to the point where the coils got so big you couldn't fit them on the core. You need a bigger core, and those cores are kind of hard to find in a specific material. So they're not very efficient. But the more you wrap, the higher the voltage. And then my last video on my channel up to about 1,000 volts, and I was getting really close to where I believe the process will work. And anyway, one day I'm working on this thing, and I keep touching the water to see if because when I'm watching this scope shot on the oscilloscope, if I stuck my finger in the water, all the voltage would be gone. Zap, it'd go right flat line to 0 volts, because I shorted out the cell. There was just some voltage on there. So I kept winding bigger coils, and I got into that habit of reaching over and touching the water just to see what it would do. One time, it's producing a little bit of gas bubbles here and there, like 800 volts or something. I reach over there and I stick my finger in that water, and I get shocked like a static electricity in the wintertime across the carpet, it just lit me up. It was like, wow, you know, I'd never done that before. And then it went bang at the same time because it ignited the little bit of hydrogen bubbles that were on the water. Scared the hell out of me, but zapped the crap out of me too. And that just shows you that I had, you know, in the water that it shocked me. It finally zapped me pretty good. So it is possible
So
to get high
you
voltage.
produce static electricity using water?
Yeah, I had static. I had a static electrical charge on the water.
I've never seen it done before.
We'll go through some of my videos on my YouTube channel, Dynodon64, and you'll see there should be one on there. I don't remember which one it is. That I have this little fluorescent light over my kitchen sink. It's
Hey,
12,
Karen,
14.
can you put his link to his chat or one of y'all in the thing so I can click it, please?
Yeah, it's just
I'm
Dynodon.
sorry, go ahead, bro.
I have his channel
It's
up
in the
already.
description of this Hangout,
Yeah.
Joe.
I will put it in the group chat.
Yeah, Don's
Okay,
link
but anyway,
is in the description of this
I
Hangout.
got
The link is already in the group chat.
There it is. I got it.
If-
Let me click through. I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. He was saying something.
Okay, yeah. If you're familiar with Tesla coils, you ever seen Tesla coils where people will hold a fluorescent light bulb, a coil, and it'll light the bulb up without any wires connecting to it? They call it scalar waves.
Yeah.
Well, that little cell that I have, that little plastic cell I'm showing in my videos, when I got up to that 800,000 volts, I could take a little fluorescent light bulb from my kitchen and hold it up next to that cell, and it will start lighting that light up. The light up. So that proves that there's this high voltage electrical charge on the water. And that's what Stan was claiming you could do, and that's what it was doing. I just never got to the voltage I think I required to get the water to basically fall apart. It was only a few hundred volts shy. But like I said, I just got to the point where my coils were too small. I couldn't wrap any more wire.
Had magnetism in it too. Like,
yeah,
you can
that's amazing because I had
water and drag the magnet across the water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's electrostatic charge. And that's all it is just a static charge on the water. And it's amazing that you can put that kind of voltage to the water without it, you know, shorting out and blowing a circuit breaker fuse. But it was there. It shocked me, and I could light up a fluorescent light bulb with it without even touching it. And then if you touch the bulb to the water, then it would light up almost fully light like you turn it on the wall. And I'm only running, you know, 40, 50 milliamps at 800,000 volts.
Yeah.
Something else you use, the word dielectric, and that just seems to be a word that they don't like talking about very much.
Yeah, true. I never understood it.
A dielectric is anything is a dielectric. For anything that will not conduct electricity, electricity won't flow through it. It'll block electricity from flowing. You know, like a piece of plastic, cellophane, piece of paper. A paper is dielectric. It will not conduct electricity. So if you have two electrical plates, piece of paper, you now have a capacitor, and those metallic plates, if you put a voltage across them, they'll maintain a charge up to a point. If you increase the voltage, it'll finally arc and short between the plates through the dielectric, which would be the paper, the plastic. Mylar is a really good dielectric material. Water is dielectric. Air is a dielectric. Like I'd seen a class in high school. The electrician's asking me, says, "No, why does that your power outlet on the wall? Why does that electricity not jump out and hit you? What's stopping it from doing that?" Because air is a dielectric. It's not conductive to electrical flow of current. But it will, you know, it's how lightning, you know, the static charges in the clouds builds up to a point where finally
I was just about to ask you.
of air.
There's free energy in the air, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's just the same as those Lindenberg figures that when you do dismantle a microwave and you do an electrical discharge in wood, that you get those great Lindenberg figure shapes.
Yeah, free energy saved me on my light bill. Saved me about $40 on my light bill. In March because I was using the sunlight to heat our house
Oh,
Oh yeah.
instead of the heater.
Yeah, free energy in the air. We breathe it in.
Well, like I was telling you yesterday, Karen, we live on the plane we live on is all based on an electrical environment. It's dielectric. The whole everything in this universe, in our world here, is based on electrical charge.
yeah.
Our
I like to
bodies.
call it frequency.
Electrical charge and resonance. It boils
Yeah.
down to resonance. And that's what I was just telling Karen yesterday, that our bodies are all electrical impulses from our brain to everything in our body is run on electricity.
Yep. Indeed.
The air is all electrical. The ground is the earth is the ground plane, and the sky is
Yeah, that's right there. Like the ground is the negative and the air is the positive, right?
right. That's what they say. If you've seen that, was it Dan Dimensions video where he shows he has a little Tesla coil and he's got the little test tubes filled with argon gas and he holds it up to the glows blue, sky blue. That's a really good video if you haven't seen that.
I got something. Let me see. Let me see if I can bring my picture up.
Yeah, he's saying that the sun is the electrical field that's energizing the neon argon molecules in the atmosphere, and that's what gives us the blue sky, gives us light. It's all electrical based.
That makes sense.
Have any of you seen that video by Dan Dimensions on YouTube?
No.
Look it up. It's the guy's name is Dan Dimensions, DEMIN
Okay.
TION, something like it.
I've
Dimensions.
watched some
Dan
of his
Dimensions.
stuff.
Really, really good video. It starts off with a little Lego guy holding something in his hand. He says, "We're gonna have to science the shit out of this." That's how it starts. It's like the Batman Lego, and he goes into all this theory of his, and it makes all the sense in the world. It's amazing the color that argon glows to when it's by an electric field. It's a perfect sky blue. But that's kind of what Tesla figured out. He says, you want to know the universe, study resonance, and what was the other thing? But it's just voltage and resonance, and that's what
Yeah, he was an amazing man, Tesla. We have a Matt Jerome on who comes on Sun and Moon. He's a friend, and he thinks in his family tree he's related to Tesla, and he's doing some amazing works. Matt's doing.
Yeah, when I was going through all the Stan Meyers paperwork, there was a lot of Tesla literature in there. Pretty hard.
I think that Matt's worked out though that he made one mistake. He put a 0 in there, and 0 adds up to nothing. So it's not a 0.
0 and infinity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 0 is 1.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
So there's
Is this actually a site of Dan Dimensions? Is this the
That's
one?
it. Yep,
Okay.
Let there be light.
Okay, now everybody knows the site. You can see
that's
here you see.
That's the one. That video right there where it says "Let there be light." That's the video I'm talking about.
Okay, now everybody knows which one you were talking about. I will search it very quick so everybody knows the channel and how it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little Star Wars Lego guy there.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so many flat Earth clues in that movie, though, man. Like,
He is a flat earther.
Yeah.
Dan Dimension is a flat earther.
No, I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about in just the movie, the Lego movie in general. It had so many flat Earth clues in there, especially when he went to the other dimension, when he went I guess, on the other side of the wall and fell into that portal. It makes me think, like, if there is an ice wall in Antarctica, and
Yeah,
then you get past
yeah,
that wall and
yeah.
go
It
through
was
all those mountains and stuff, will it be, what will you find? Like a void of a portal or what?
right. Yeah,
It just makes
I'd
you
never
scratch your
seen it.
head.
I never seen the movie for the longest time, and I finally watched it. And I was like, yeah, that was a pretty good movie.
I tell you another movie, it was very inappropriate, but it had the whole movie basically was around flat Earth. Basically, about revolves around flat Earth was a Sausage Party.
Oh, I haven't. Seen
That one was typically a flat Earth movie from beginning to end.
No.
Um, and especially how we were the food, we were the food, and everybody that come and pick us up to make us feel special on this meaningless speck of dust, right?
Yeah.
Were the gods. That's how we look at them and stuff. And then when we have visual proof that the gods are not who they say they are, like dude did, like he did at the end of the movie when he ripped out that page of the cookbook and showed them what the people was actually doing to the food, eating food and stuff. They still didn't want to believe that their heroes would do that to them. And even though they had a cookbook, you flash him a cookbook, you flash him
I'd
like the
never.
cookbook of seeing y'all your whole entire generation being eaten and murdered and stuff, right? So
I
I got to
remember
thinking,
seeing the
I was
preview.
like, wow, how much visual proof do we show people and they still just choose to believe they're gods?
Hmm. I'd never seen. I've seen the previews, but I've never seen it yet. I'll have to watch that sometime. Yeah, there's been a lot of movies throughout history. I
Oh
mean,
crap, I
it goes
ruined it
way
for
back to Logan's Run. They were under a dome. They were inside a terrarium, so to speak.
Hmm.
you. You said
Hey,
Logan's Run?
Logan's Run, yeah, that's
That's showing your age, John. That is, lots of people like Joe won't know what Logan's Run is, probably.
That was
Logan's
Yeah.
from
Run.
19
It's a 70s movie. Yeah,
movie with Farrah Fawcett.
yeah. Yeah, she played a
He's a good actor.
very small part in it. Yeah.
It sounds familiar. I just don't think I ever watched it. And I watched a lot of Farrah Fawcett movies.
Well,
Yeah,
she didn't play a main part. It was just a small part in the
yeah,
movie.
she was not even a second billing, maybe third billing. She was just a character
Yeah,
who doesn't make
yeah.
it to the end. Spoiler.
Oh, she was just a supporting cast.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
just one character towards the end.
yeah,
Very
Oh
small.
shit, she wasn't even a supporting cast. She was an extra.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It was back in the days when she was the rage.
yeah.
I can't remember. There was a British guy who was the main character. Logan played Logan. It was a
Mhm.
hmm
British guy that played him. And then they did a TV series on it shortly after that in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was Logan's Run is from 1976.
I was going to say 6 or
by
7.
Michael Anderson.
Yeah. I was figuring it was around then. Star Wars
Right,
came out in
that
77.
sounds old now, doesn't it?
Well, the story is still up to date. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But it was a post-apocalyptic show.
Yeah, it
Post,
says here in the writing that the movie portrayed it as it was the year 2274.
Yeah. Yeah, it was after like World War III
Yeah.
when everything was nuked, I guess.
So, Don, how long have you been a flat earther for then?
Um,
What made you realise? Did you wake up in
Well,
2015? Is it something you've known all your life?
it's been about a year now. It's about December this time last year. I was just watching videos on YouTube, and on the side link, I try to watch airplane stuff and just a little bit of everything. And one day this link pops up for the Go Fast rocket, and it says Go Fast rocket hitting the dome or something. Like, watch it, and it goes up, and then it says 3, 2, 1, boing. Like, what the hell was that? And I didn't even know it was a flat Earth video. So I'm watching it, and then I start all these other links for flat Earth stuff, and I watched it, and I never even really questioned it. I never said, "Oh, you guys are a bunch of idiots." It was intriguing to me. I never about it. You know, I probably kind of in the back of my head, I always thought things were fishy. I didn't believe in a lot of the stuff, but I'd never thought about it before. I just happened to watch that one video, and then it was like for the next 3 or 4 months, every waking minute, and I just like Mark Sargent says, you just lay there and all you can think about is what you've been watching, and it's been. And then in April, I got my ticket to go to the conference. You know, I was on the early bird list and got the lowest price for the ticket.
Oh,
So I've only been in here for about a year now, but it took to me like, you know, like,
there's videos, and you just know.
yeah. You familiar
Can y'all
with
hear me?
Wolfie? You familiar with Wolfie
Sorry?
620 at all?
Can y'all hear
Australian.
me?
So, Joe,
Yeah.
do you want to say something?
Yeah, hold on.
Are you going to ask
Oh,
something, Joe?
shoot, I thought I was muted. Yeah, hey, I'm gonna bring it back up. I think I still got it up. My fault.
Don, also thank you till now what you explained in a great fashion about your work and your investigation and everything.
Yeah.
I think you did
The
it in a
problem.
great fashion. So
Yeah, the problem with Stan's is, you know, you need like 2 or 3 hours to really go through all his stuff. There's just so much there. I'm just trying to give you a few highlights, but I figured do some of his later things like making the fuel injector and trying to get it to work until you can get the actual work with the early stuff. And anything after that is a waste of time. You can't do it. You pretty much got to follow his footsteps. You got to learn what he learned. You got to start with the basics, and you got to work your way up. There was a young guy named Russ Grease. I gave him all the information, and he wanted to build that electrical generator thing with the magnetized gas in it. And I says, "Why are you going to build that? It won't work until you can make the gas, and you can't make the gas until you make the circuit work, because you have to use this circuitry to strip electrons off of the argon gas or whatever in order to get the magnetic particles to link up with it. You know, you've got to start playing with chemistry basically to make this gas, and you can't do it until you get that voltage intensifier circuit to work." So he was just wasting his time building a replica of something he can't get to work. To get the voltage intensifier circuit working, everything else won't work. Nothing will work.
okay.
Like y'all
But
can
Yeah,
see here
and
on this y'all can see here. Let me see. Can I
yeah, I
what,
can
the
see
see
picture?
here on the scale I drew about a year ago or so? No, it was early this year actually. Basically, how everything on flat Earth got to have a balance. You know, we can't have no balance if we are wobbling wet ball of water shooting through space, right? So everything
right.
here is a balance. Of course, you got up is down, left is right. You know, man, woman. You know, red,
Day
blue,
and
whatever, right? After I drew this, I realized that I drew a compass. I didn't even realize it until after I colored it in. I was like, dang, ain't that the? I like that. Look, that is exactly what a compass is. You know, the north is always red, right?
yep.
But anyways, that was actually just a bonus, that part. But the red basically represents the fire and the air. Basically, how fire and air rises, and then you see Earth right here on this line. It's basically that's the balance. Then under Earth, you got the water, you got the ice. You know, it's like everything up here is opposite from what's down here, and it just makes you think. That's why you know, when you lay down, which is opposite of wake up. I mean, it's kind of when you kind of put the words together. But my thing is, when I came to the positive and negative, you see, I drew the positive symbol here. I mean, the negative symbol here, right? Which the negative was always going to be, the symbol was always going to be flat, right? It's always going to be flat like the ground. And then you got the positive, but you notice that I didn't make the positive a plus sign, because that means that you're combining this with the negative. You see what I'm saying? When the positive is always gonna be up, while the negative is basically always gonna it's always going to be down. And this is like my first this is when I first did it. Shout out to brother DQ for helping me with it. Because he was the scale, it was his scale, but then when I actually drew it up myself or whatever, I basically got the same thing he got. Um, you know, then you got here the Jesus fish or whatever, which they said Jesus was born on Christmas. That's a lie. He was not. Um, and one of my Bibles had a footnote that even said that. It said that he was actually born in April. So when I look at the Jesus fish, and then I think about April, I thought about, huh, Pisces, right? That's April, right? So that's kind of how I made the connection there. Now,
Pisces, February, isn't it? March.
yeah, it's the March to April. It's like the first 15 days of April.
Well, is this to do with like free energy then and stuff like that, or are you just explaining something to us, Joe?
No, I was it was about the free energy, about the positive and the
Right.
negative. I was building on what he was saying, you know, how you got the positive here. I don't know if y'all can see my mouse, but you got a positive here, and then you got the negative here that basically creates what he was saying, all the electricity that's all around us. Like when he was bringing it up, when he was talking about it, I just thought about this scale right here that kind of simplifies, you know, the up from down, the electricity, you know, with the water and the fire, I mean, the ice or whatever, you know. That's
Yeah,
how
you're synchronized, Joe. You're synchronizing to this hangout.
Synchronizing, what that mean? I mean, I know what sync means, but to the hangout, huh?
Synchronized. You've just drawn something that Don's been talking about today.
Oh yeah. It was drawn up, and like I said, that's just that was I actually updated it and added some additions to it and stuff as the knowledge came to me, or if I'm, you know, if I'm looking at something, I'm like, oh dang, I need to add this in there. You know, it's in there on my thing. I actually took a picture, but of it being updated. As far as the balance, the even balance and stuff. I just end up clicking on the first picture that I came across. I didn't click on the updated
It's good to
picture.
see you've been drawing.
Huh?
You've drawn it. Drawings then.
Yeah, some things it takes some work to do, especially when you're talking about like deep science, like Brother Don here is doing about electricity, how electricity can move through this, but it's not as conductive through this and that. I mean, that's Science Academy, really.
Oh, Don's doing something else now, aren't you, Don?
What's that?
Your
Aeroplane.
current project you're working on.
Oh, yeah, I've been at that airplane project longer than this, longer than Stan's. I started that airplane like 30 years ago.
Okay. If you
And
want
what are
to,
you
you
trying
can.
to achieve? Yeah. What are you trying to achieve then?
With the airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a home built airplane. It'll be something I'll be flying here real soon.
So it's nearly ready then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was what you call a plans built. Everything on that airplane that you see, I built from scratch. I mean, the landing gear is all metal. It all had to be cut, fabricated, welded. The whole airplane is a wooden box structure covered with foam and fiberglass to give the shape and look of the World War II fighter. I started when I was like 22, 23 years old, but life gets in the way, and it wasn't a kit build plane, so it's a long process to build one of these. So it got put to the side several times, but these last few years I've been going at it pretty hard to get it finished up so I can finally fly the thing before I die.
But I think you can probably rewrite history. Well, I don't even want. Well, never mind. Cause history is a lie too. But you can kind of well, you can rewrite history for us because I mean, for our movement, for the simple fact, you're kind of reinventing the Wright brothers thing, playing from scratch. And I don't think nobody's ever really done that, or it hasn't been documented that they've done that. Not that I know of.
There's not a whole lot of videos on YouTube out there of people building, but these airplanes were designed back in the 70s, the mid 70s, when this war aircraft replica started in California. It was a way to get into a World War II fighter airplane without spending $1 million for a real one. But they're just a little sport plane. They require a private pilot's license to fly, which I got when I got out of the service. Worked on the engine mechanic in the Marine Corps. And once I got out of there, I got a job at the local airport as a mechanic, and then that's when I started building it. Mustang cars and started drag racing and spent a lot of money on that playing, and I always like to go fast. But I finally decided to finish this. I do have gyrocopters, little helicopters, one-man type. If you're familiar with the original Road Warrior with Mel Gibson, the guy in the Road Warrior flying around, that's a
Was it
gyrocopter.
Road Warrior or Mad Max?
It was the Road Warrior, the second episode. Mad Max was the first, and then the Road Warrior was the second, and then Beyond Thunderdome was the third.
Yeah, it was a sequel, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a three-part. This one with Mel Gibson, it was filmed in Australia, but the second one, the Road Warrior, the guy had the helicopter. They had one in James Bond. Over there in England, you had, what's his name? Commander Wallace has a gyrocopter.
I
There's
think
videos on
I
YouTube.
think even they even used it on the A-Team.
Say again?
They even used it on the series The A-Team in the 80s. Mad Murder.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what they Joe did?
Yeah. Mad Murder.
I think I seen it on the episode of Knight Rider one time too. You talking about a gyrocopter? I think I seen it on the episode of Knight Rider once or twice.
The most recent one in history was when the guy landed one on the White House lawn like a year or so ago. He landed a gyrocopter on the White House lawn.
He didn't get shot down?
No, but he got arrested and thrown in jail, and yeah, that was on the news for quite a while over here.
How
I
did you
wondered
get to land there?
if they were just made for TV, but that's another story.
This guy was in his 60s, and he was a former postal mail, so he had all these letters, one for every senator and representative in the White House that he was delivering the mail to.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a couple years back.
How the
I
hell?
got videos on my YouTube channel. I have some videos with my gyrocopter flying, and I got my Stan Meyers stuff.
This though, how in the world did he get past a no-fly zone without getting shot down? That was restricted.
These things fly treetop high. I fly mine only 100, 200 feet most of the time. Real low.
Yeah, I guess I can get one and you can fly under the radar, literally.
There's a picture of a more modern day one there. I see someone just posted.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the most maneuverable aircraft in the world.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it. Yeah, I found the
There it
picture
is.
just to
Yeah.
give you a view how it looks, how those look, those gyrocopters.
Mine's similar to like the third one up there in the top, the little guy. Yeah, something similar to
More
that.
open. Yours is a bit more open, is it?
Oh yeah. Well, if you go to my YouTube, you'll see the one I fly on YouTube. I got it on there.
Okay, but it's similar to this one.
Yeah, that's an old Benson style frame there.
Okay.
And that's a Dominator gyrocopter there.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
Guys, it's flat. I just had to throw that out there.
They're really fun to
You
fly.
get the general idea how it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. You guys got some really nice ones over there in Europe. Like that one up on the top, that white egg-shaped one. That's made over there in Europe.
Yeah.
Those are really nice.
Yeah,
Those are like
indeed.
$100,000 machine right there.
$100,000 machine.
bad.
$100,000. Yeah, they're outrageous.
I mean, that's cheaper than what I thought. I thought helicopters were in the millions, like $2 million, $3 million and stuff, like a jet.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
these aren't
That's what I thought.
helicopters. These are auto gyros. There's no power to those rotor blades on the top. Pinwheel. The engine on the back with the propeller pushes you forward. The air goes up through the rotor blades and makes them spin like a pinwheel. Rotor blades. It's all auto rotation.
It's not a compound machine. It's acting as a simple machine.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an auto gyro.
An auto gyro. Okay.
Gyro. Auto gyro. So what does that mean then? An auto gyro?
You're flying in auto rotation the whole time. The rotor blades are strictly auto rotation only. As you go forward, the engine in the back with the propeller pushes you forward. The air goes up through the blades because they have a slight angle that lay backwards. They'll spin up, and once they get up to about 300 RPM, you get to flying speed and you fly. As long as you're moving forward or coming down, the rotors never stop spinning. They spin the whole time you're flying. There's no power. There's no torque like a helicopter. There's no tail rotor to counteract rotor torque for the rotor heads. They're auto rotation. Say again?
If you've got no rudder, how do you maneuver it then?
That rotor is fixed on it. It will move left and right, forwards and back. It's got full cyclic control, meaning that rotor head up top, that rotor up top, when you left, it rolls that rotor a little to the left and it makes you go left and right. And then when you pull back, they tip up and makes you climb, push them forward and go down. And then the rudder on the back is just like a normal airplane, which makes your nose yaw. But
Oh, I think I get it now.
It flies just like a regular helicopter.
1 second. Joe, can you mute yourself, darling?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Carry on, Don.
Yeah, you have to go forward. They take off and land like an airplane. You can't take off vertically and you can't land vertically like a helicopter. It's not a helicopter. A helicopter has a tail rotor to counteract the torque that it takes to spin the main rotors. But it flies just like a helicopter. It flies just like an airplane once it's up in the air. It's way more maneuverable. Yeah, it's far more maneuverable than any airplane or helicopter out there. I can literally turn that thing around on a dime from going one direction, spin it right around, go back the other direction in a blink of an eye. Oh, it's crazy.
Is that because it's quite small?
A lot of fun. Yeah, they're single. Most of them are single seaters. Those real fancy ones that were for 100 grand, those will carry 2 people. Then there's only a couple factory built ones, and they'll hold 4 people, but they were made back in the 60s, I think. Air and Space, they were called. But most
They're
of the
looking
modern
at
day ones
those things you're flying look a little bit more like they've come out of the films of the future. That's what we should be using now. Everybody should be in one of those. I'm just going in my, was it auto gyro to the shops?
Yeah. First time I ever seen one on TV, if you remember the Martian Chronicles back in the 70s with Rock Hudson. He was in a abandoned colony on Mars. He was on a ham radio calling out trying to find somebody else on Mars because everybody had left Mars or something on the planet, so everybody got scared and left. So he's calling on the radio and he finds somebody. He says, "All right, I'll be right there," and he hops on this gyrocopter and takes off flying. That's the first time I ever seen the gyrocopter. That was like back in the 70s with a Rock Hudson movie. It was a little mini series on TV for like called The Martian Chronicles. And then the second time I seen one was on the Road Warriors of Mad Max. John had one on there, which was flown by Commander Wallace from England. He was the pilot on that film flying that gyrocopter. He's a real well-known guy in the gyro community.
Mhm.
But they're
So
all.
how often do you fly then?
Well, right now I generally don't fly in wintertime because the airfield I use is a grass strip, and once it gets snowed in, you're done. I never bother with skis. I hate the cold, so I don't. But I also have another, like a two-place ultralight airplane, tube and fabric type thing that I fly in the summertime, and then once I get this Corsair done, I'll be flying that. But I do have a private pilot license where I can go to the local airport and check out Cessnas and go fly them if I want, but I just don't feel like paying $200 an hour to rent one.
Whoa.
My little airplane that I have, my little two-place that the wife flies with me, it cost me like $10 an hour to fly that airplane.
Hold on, did you say $200 an hour just to rent it?
Yeah, $200 an hour just to rent a Cessna. And if you want an instructor, it's another $35 an hour for the instructor.
Well, we can all afford that one, can't we?
So,
Andre, what's your hope for the aeroplane you're making then?
it's just going to be a sport plane. I do what you call a sport flying. I just fly because it's a sport to me. It's fun. It's something I like to do. I'm in mountains or whatever. It's just a hobby. But I'll use it to go to fly-ins, local fly-ins. It's like car cruise-ins, but for airplanes. I'll take it to airplane shows or events. Most of them we call them fly-ins. My main goal is to fly it out to the Experimental Aircraft Association convention in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. That would be the main goal, is to fly out there because everybody.
People in the plane with you then? Is it a one-person plane or?
It's just a single. Yeah, it's a single-seater airplane. It's just one person, and it's a tight one person too. It's a small airplane. It's only like 21-foot wingspan, and it's pretty tight fitting. You kind of slip into it like a shoe.
So you haven't actually flown this before then?
No, it's not finished yet. It's not finished. It's getting close though. I'm hoping to have it pretty much finished up and painted by the end of next year, and that's literally all it's left to do is because it's in raw fiberglass form, so it needs to be filled and sanded before it can be painted. Put the engine back on, and then put the instruments in it, and it'll be ready for the FAA to come out and inspect. Then I'll get a license to.
How do you test it out then?
You just hop in it and you practice. You generally you would find another aircraft out there that's similar to it that you can get some training in, because this is a tail dragger airplane, so it's non-conventional, like a tricycle gear on a Cessna. So and because it is it's a high performance airplane. This thing will cruise about 150 miles an hour when it's in the air. It'll max out probably close to 200 miles an hour top speed. A Cessna on a normal 172 Cessna will cruise about 120. So this thing's way faster than a Cessna. So you can cover some ground in it pretty quick. But yeah, you would generally find an airplane that's similar to it, a tail dragger, and take some lessons in that and get the feel of how to use a tail dragger. But I'm used to that kind of flying, so it's just a matter of test area that the FAA will give you. Once you get a certificate of airworthiness from the FAA, they'll give you an area of like 50-mile radius from your base airport where you want to fly from. So you got to go out and fly in that area for 40 hours before you can fly it anywhere else after that. But it's illegal to fly pretty much around the world if you wanted. Registered aircraft with the FAA, and it abides by all the rules of everybody else. So
you have to have flown it around for 40 hours before they'll sort of give a license for it.
Well, you'll get the license, but you're just restricted to 40 hours to make sure the airplane is sound and safe and you don't have any problems with it. After the 40 hours, you don't need anything. You can go anywhere you want after that. I can fly to California if I want, fly to Mexico, Canada. It doesn't matter because it's already registered. It's legal with the FAA. A 40 hours test of the airframe and power plants to make sure it's safe to travel longer distances is all. It's a standard routine for an experimental aircraft.
And then for people that are listening, how far can you fly on it in it then?
Well, this will hold 15 gallons of gas, and it'll burn about 4 gallons an hour. So I've got about 3 hours of flight time at 150 miles an hour. So you're looking at a range between 400 to 500 miles at 150 miles per hour.
And how much does the gas cost you, just asking?
It's automotive fuel here is about $2.70 a gallon right now, so pounds an hour. It's still, like $10 an hour or so to fly the thing. 2, 4.
So I take it you are a certified pilot or whatever license.
Yeah, I have what's called a private pilot's license.
They don't even matter as long as you legally can get off the ground. Yep. It's all because I've been looking for pilots. I've been looking for pilots to talk to on a regular basis, like Marlena and stuff. So we can prove our
the nice thing with this, is I'll be able to fly it at a much higher altitude than my current plane. It only climbs like 500 feet a minute, so it takes a long time to get to a couple thousand feet. With this airplane, I can fly up to 10, 12,000 feet, within 10, 15 minutes or so. You can get up there and get a better view, but after you get up over 12,000 feet, I believe, you got to get into instrument rating flying. I can't fly above that without an instrument rating, instrument license, instrument equipment, which this airplane won't be equipped for.
It seems a lot cheaper to do your aeroplane than have the Cessna with a instructor.
Well, if you buy your own airplane, airplanes are expensive. They cost
money. That's expensive, probably, isn't it? All that bit's expensive.
Airplanes are ridiculously expensive, but you can get them fairly cheap. But airplanes cost money just sitting because, for one, you got to find an airport to hangar it at. You got to pay hangar rent every month, so it costs money just sitting on the ground. And hangar rent here can be $200 a month just to keep it stored in a hangar if you don't have your own private grass strip. So airplanes cost money just sitting.
I was just going to say that unless you build your own hangar and have enough land, where you live at to pave it up, dig it up, and build your own.
Right. Yeah, you need a good 2,000 feet for a runway for most airplanes.
Yeah, and then he needs a runway. Yeah. I'm just going down the road.
Yeah,
you need land for the hangar and you need land to build a runway.
There are people that use the roads for runways, certain places. But luckily I got a grass strip that's only 4 miles from here. It's 2,000 foot long, and it's not bad. but it'll be a fun plane to fly. You'll be able to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you're all sorted, really, apart from actually painting the plane and flying it now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of prep work. It's got to be prepped and filled. There's, the fiberglass is all laid in that, but it's real rough texture feeling. You have to fill it out, sand it, and get the thing looking like glass, and then you can paint it. So it'll take most of the next year just work. It's a lot of filling, sanding.
But this isn't anything like Stan Meyers' work, is it?
No, but it would have been nice to put a water fuel injector in there and run it on water. The engine in that airplane is actually out of a Subaru Legacy.
That. For us who don't fly planes.
What was that?
I said, what's that for us who don't fly planes?
You're familiar with a Subaru car?
Oh, right, a car.
That's where the engine came from.
Whoa.
It's out of a Subaru Legacy. It's
a car in the sky, then.
Yeah, that's why I say that's where I met that Rick Schneider from Stan Meyers stuff. He was at the auto engine conversion show, and I was already looking for an engine at the time, and I finally settled on the Subaru 2.2 liter engine.
Now, how many years did you take doing this experiment thing with Stan Meyers? How long was it actually taking you? You might have said earlier on, but how long did that take you?
Well, I first started dabbling in the hydrogen research in about 2007, and up to 3 years ago is the last time I played with it. I would usually drag it out about in the wintertime, like now when I get laid off, but most times I wasn't laid off. But in the wintertime when I can't go outside and do anything, I drag out my equipment, set it up, and start experimenting with it. But yeah, up till about 3 years ago, so from 08 till 3 years ago, I played with it. And in that time, I worked with the help them sell that buggy, and I got my hands on it. And all the data that's out there now that you see pictures of all the electronic boards and things, all came from me. I gathered all that information and put it out there on the internet. So anybody that's ever experimented with this stuff in the past 10 years are familiar with me, because nobody knew the buggy even existed.
This bit where you didn't quite get the experiment finished, is it a bit like Alan, who I asked to come on, but he's had to work today, and Alan's into free energy, and he was working with amethysts and crystals, but he was doing it in his house, but he decided that it was a little bit unsafe maybe, because it was actually in his house. And really, he needs like a laboratory.
Yeah.
Is that the same sort of thing, what you needed for this Stan Meyers stuff? You needed a proper sort of place, which, we're just simple people.
Was he trying to experiment with chemicals or chemistry of some sort?
With the crystals?
Yeah, was he trying to use chemistry, like anything?
Stuff's different. He's trying to, in a sense, Don talked about it, about free sourcing this stuff. Alan would like it if all of us, which would provide this free energy. At the moment, he's using an electric bicycle. It's got a motor on the bicycle, moped thing, and that powers his house. But he was going crystals and amethyst way, but like I said, he realized that in his house things could happen and it's not very safe. So he decided to try different ways, and you could use water. There's many ways to make free energy devices, but anyway, that was his stuff. But I was just asking Don, was it the same sort of thing? Like you really needed a proper like a big workshop, a laboratory, assistant?
No, for me, no. The only major hazard with Stan Meyers' research is the creation of the hydrogen gases, because it's lighter than air. if you start making a lot of gas and you're playing around for a couple hours and you don't realize it, that hydrogen will reach and it'll hover along the ceiling in your house if it doesn't have any place to go. And if you have any kind of electrical spark or something like that, it could ignite the hydrogen, you know, blow the roof off your house. So it's highly explosive. But the stuff I'm doing, playing with, I'm not really creating that kind of gas yet. I'm still trying to get the voltage up to the levels required to make the gas. But once you hit that threshold, yeah, then you really need to take it outside somewhere well ventilated, because you can't store this gas. It's a bomb. If you store it in a container, it is literally a bomb. Like I say, a cup full of this stuff is loud when it lights and explodes. It will blow your eardrums out. It'll make you deaf. It is extremely volatile. So you have to outside, but it's not a problem for me with that. It's just money. It boils down to every time I play with it, I'm laid off. I have the least amount of cash on hand, and you're always looking to buy some electronic components. You're buying the magnet wire for winding the coils and the cores, and it all comes down to money in the end. You know, it costs to do the research. And I just pretty much did it as a hobby just to see what I could do. I always liked the idea of being able to run a vehicle on water because I'm a motorhead from way back. You know, I know all there is to know about engines. I've built many engines, did a lot of drag racing. You know, I had my Mustang. I was a street car, made over 800 horsepower, would run 10 seconds in a quarter mile. And I'd drive it to the track, race it, and drive it home. That's what I did. I knew how to implement the hydrogen. I know how to implement it into a car to make it run. It's just a matter of being able to make enough hydrogen on demand to run the vehicle. But that was the ultimate goal. But everybody has the same idea, want to run their car on hydrogen. But it takes money, and it takes equipment. You need the oscilloscopes, and the stuff's expensive. I buy all secondhand stuff, but you're constantly buying electrical components, making frequency generators, and it's just.
How much money do you reckon you've spent on this then, if that's not too rude to ask?
I haven't spent a whole lot. I probably spent a couple grand is all, a couple $1,000. Like I say, the equipment, an oscilloscope, and even a cheap one on eBay, you'll set you back $100, and then it may not be the best one for the job. And then learning how to use all this stuff. I knew nothing about electronics when I started. So now that, you know, 8-10 years later, I know a lot about electronics, but I still know I don't know anything about electronics. Those things, you learn a lot. I'm able to fix things that I could never fix before, just self-learning electronics.
Basically, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying he basically turned into a lawnmower man. You remember y'all seen that movie how he basically clueless to everything, and then he went into that type of virtual reality experiment. He came out, he knew every bit and megabit to every computer frame on the on Earth.
Isn't that? I know that movie. That is called Lawnmower Man.
Yeah,
Stephen King's Lawnmower Man. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. How he was kind of clueless at first, but then, you know, he went into that experiment or whatever, and the tasting. I don't know if they were testing a drug on him, but anyway, he came out a freaking genius. Like, he could get into every computer mainframe, and he didn't know nothing about computers at first.
Yeah,
basically they had a kind of device that was turning with all kinds of computers hooked up, and then you actually could download information into the brain. As I remember it.
Yeah. He was pumping. He was a real dim-witted character to start with. He was.
He basically, the only job he could do was mowing lawns.
Yeah, that was
the only thing he was capable of. And then an inventor who was trying things out to get people smarter needed somebody to test it on, and then he tested on him, but it went wrong in the end because he got so smart.
He turned evil.
He turned evil. He was getting so smart that he could also read all the negative thoughts everybody had.
Yeah, he could do that, and and then they were so smart they couldn't even. He automatically knew how to override his shutdown
Yeah.
button because the shutdown button wouldn't even work. They said in order to destroy him, you had to get into the system yourself.
Yeah.
But he was the only one that had the key to get in.
That was an interesting movie, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That was Pierce Brosnan was the doctor in that. That was the guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. And the movie that basically woke me up back in the 80s was They Live from John Carpenter.
Mm.
With the part played by the wrestler Roddy Piper, who played the main part Nada in the movie They Live. It was from 1988.
Yeah, and the black guy Keith David, who was also in Armageddon.
Yeah,
Keith David.
Yeah.
And what was is actually funny that we back in the day we had you had MTV, and late at night I always watched Yo MTV Rap. But Yo MTV Raps was very late at night here in Germany. It was almost 1 o'clock in the evening. And for some strange reason, a certain period, Yo MTV Raps was blocked away by a pirate station. So a pirate station overrided MTV Raps. So I was watching that pirate station. It also had the pirate logo. And it was basically pushing MTV off. It was a pirate station coming through, probably locally. And they had all kinds of movies with messages in them, like Logan's Run. And then they had They Live on. After that, they had also the movie The Holy Mountain. It's also a very interesting movie, also from the 70s. But also... basically, The Holy Mountain is also a movie that tells about the world and how the bank system works and how people get indoctrinated by certain things and hidden messages and hidden symbolism. And they showed all those kinds of movies.
Sounds like now, artist. That sounds like that's what's happening now.
Yeah, well, you had a lot of movies in the 70s and 80s that were already telling about it.
Do you remember Keanu Reeves' movie where they were trying to make hydrogen gas from water? What was that movie called? But Keanu Reeves was in it. And
Chain Reaction. Keanu Reeves and Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yep.
That's right along with Stan Meyers' work.
Yeah.
What, they
Same
used
thing.
his work in that film?
Yeah, but they found out that a specific frequency is what they were missing to make the water break down and generate the sustainable hydrogen output. It boiled down to frequencies, resonant frequency.
I was thinking about, since we on this kind of topic, I remember Brother Sanchez brought up the other day about something about Captain Planet, and then I got to thinking about it, right?
Oh, that was that
I
cartoon.
got to thinking that I might need to go back and watch every Captain Planet episode, even though we all know it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Because I think it had a bunch of predictive programming in that, in a lot of episodes, to predict the natural disasters. And then I go by the power that each planeteer possessed, right? You had Kwame, who had the power of Earth. He was from where? Haiti or something. And Haiti been having earthquakes, right? Then you had Wheeler from USA, who had the power of fire, right? How many forest fires been triggered here in America, right? Then you had, I think, Guy, the Asian one that had the power of water. I think she was from Japan or something, somewhere from Asia. Don't they get hit with a lot of tsunamis? And I'm when I think of it, I'm thinking all of these disasters are engineered. They're not done by nature. It's just something to think about. I need to go back and watch episodes.
It's something to think about, indeed. Yeah.
Even like the First World War and the Second World War, it's all engineered. It was all planned.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to tell Don, was that when artists found all this information, even newspaper articles, a lot of stuff more about flat Earth is actually in papers mentioned. Even NASA says it's a flat plane. Companies.
There's a calculation of a stationary, non-rotating Earth with a stationary atmosphere. And if you actually look at the research sites and you type in non-rotating Earth or stationary atmosphere, you get hundreds of NASA files. So they talk about it a lot. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, that's that thing that Rob Skiba brought up at the conference. Was he had that documentation talking about the non-rotating flat plane for testing of aircraft, supersonic aircraft.
Yeah.
In 1270 or something like that.
Yeah. It's documented 1270.
Right.
Maybe I can find it if I'm. Maybe.
Oh, another show. Do you remember the X-Files with David Duchovny, Mulder, and Scully?
Yeah.
And they had remember the Lone Gunman?
I didn't watch all of them.
Remember they had a spin-off show called The Lone Gunman? The very first episode was about a water-powered car.
Oh.
Yeah, look that up. The Lone Gunman.
Don, one hangout we played. Mercedes do have rather a nice electric car. I mean, it does look really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we played this 45-minute or second advert, and YouTube wanted me to stop broadcasting or take it off.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
You got a strike for it.
Free energy car.
There was a few years back, one of the manufacturers were doing a water-powered car. Japan had one, and somebody else like that, Mercedes or BMW, had a water-powered hydrogen fuel cell car.
It just seems that we were going the right way, and then we had to have the First World War and the Second World War. Maybe not for America, but especially for England and Europe. There's a lot of, we were almost annihilated, with bombs and cities, and then you've got to rebuild that restructure.
Yeah, it's
and then
just
coming out, they changed it all, and suddenly all these things that with electric car companies and all these tests, it all got forgotten.
Yeah, when humanity.
Then they blame it on us while the Earth is being destroyed or whatever. They just totally don't bring up the fact that we as people really don't. Besides our littering and stuff, we really don't do as much destruction to the Earth as the ones that blame us to do it. Cause like you said, you think about all these wars that's blowing up land and destroying trees and beautiful land with their bombing and stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's why the Earth is starting to look like crap, because of them, not us.
Yeah,
they want. Yeah, I was just gonna say they start these wars to kind of set us back on technology. Just when we're ready to make some technological breakthroughs, they break out in a war somewhere, and everything gets put on the back burner and suppressed.
Hey Don, have you seen that America don't actually fly since the Civil War? America's always been flying the war flag. Show him that.
Yeah, just a second. I will find it.
He was showing us last night, so he'll show you that.
Yeah, just a second. I will pop it up in a minute. No, for a second. I have the file ready or almost ready to go.
Yeah, artist, I want you playing the old mouth organ and getting the page up at the same time.
Oh yeah, the double feature.
So it's Don. Sometimes artist has played his little mouth organ.
Yeah,
but he can't do that and do a page, can he?
Oh, maybe one of these days I can do both. Well, if I
balance the plate on your head, artist, and the balance the plate.
Yeah. Well, you have those stands for mouth organs, so but they are very expensive. But you have them, and you can actually have a stand. Also, a stand that you
Oh,
can
see
put
what you
around.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, what Bob Dylan also had. You can also put it around your neck, and
Yeah.
then you have basically a steel frame that you can play the mouth organ.
Those artists. Have you found the picture yet?
Yeah, I found it.
Mouth organs, you talking?
A lot of people don't know this.
Now, I will read the text for everybody again. The peacetime was only flew in America during the years, give or take a couple of months, of course. In America, America was not at war with anyone. Below is the U.S. military flag. If you fly this flag in front of your home installation, occupation. That's actually the definition of those flags. The short version, of course.
Never seen that before.
No, nobody
It's terrible,
knows.
isn't it, what they kept from us? It's just terrible.
A lot of people don't know that peacetime flag. Yeah.
It's the complete opposite.
Well, and also, if you fly that flag, you are allowing occupation by the military. And use your home as a military installation. That's
They take whatever they want.
It's awful, isn't it? It's awful to keep finding so many lies. I mean, they're sort of there.
Lies upon lies. I do a lot of research on all documents, and you're surprised what you find sometimes with all newspaper that also I found out, I don't know if it's true or not, that when the electric cars were driving around in the early 20s, almost half of the American people driving an electric car.
Yeah. That's the bit of a shock. That it wasn't just the odd one. Yeah. There was many companies. And that's not anything they talk about now, is it? They don't say, in the old days, the electric cars. They just don't mention it at all.
No, they don't mention it. And even Henry Ford, his wife, was driving an electric car.
That's cool.
Also, sometimes for the high society woman, that you could drive. It was also a little bit in trend to drive an electric car in those days. You were hip. You were basically what the old advertisement said. If you are a high society woman or you're a person, they state in another way, of course. But if you want to look cool, drive an electric car, because a lot of people were driving those. Even Henry Ford, his wife. So.
Wow, it's interesting.
Yeah. Also, what I also made.
Bad. It's so bad because it's just not in our memory, is it? Even though when you think about it, it is, but it's not.
Also, Karen, showing now. For this Hangout, I've designed a video thumbnail already.
Oh, look at that, Don.
I see that.
It's on.
We're all on there.
I did an education for graphic design, so.
I just took
Don is on the controls.
Took that picture yesterday, so I'd have something on there so you guys can see me.
And I like to make them. Yeah, I like it, Don. This picture for the video thumbnail.
Yeah, it looks fine to me.
Don, is your wife in
Flat
Earth, by the way? Just asking.
No, she's not on board yet. She just says, keep it to yourself. I don't want to know.
Well, I know that's what people say, isn't it? Keep it, don't want to know.
Well, she's got a history. Her mother, when my wife was 5 years old, her mother decided to go into the Jehovah's Witnesses. So she was raised from 5 till she was 28 as a witness, and and she broke free of that. And then we got together and got married, so she won't have anything to do with that anymore, and she doesn't want to go down any more of them rabbit holes like that.
Oh, that's a good thing indeed, but because I don't know if you caught it about the Royal Australian Commission on the Jehovah's Witness investigation. They did, I think 2 years ago, the Australian Royal Commission did an investigation on the Jehovah's Witness Church, and they came up, I think, almost with 1,000 cases of pedophilia within that organization. And also in America, they had a commission to investigate it, and actually the Jehovah's Witness Church had to turn in those papers because they registrate every felony, and you have a two-witness system that actually the girl or guy or child or boy or girl that is molested has to come to in front of their court, of the Jehovah court, and also the one who did the molestation. So they have the two-witness system, and if one of the witnesses say I didn't do it, so if the molester say I didn't do it, the case is closed. They don't go to the police, but they registrate it, so they write the things down. And actually the investigation in America was done later, almost maybe longer. And what they did, they had to have those papers of the Jehovah's Witness Church, but they don't turn them in, and they have to pay a month, $40,000 a month, for not turning in those papers. It's going on almost 10 years. So imagine the amount of money Jehovah's Witness pays the U.S. government for not turning in those papers, because they have something to hide, obviously. And the Royal Australian Commission is now doing that in Australia, the same investigation, and it wouldn't surprise me that actually Jehovah's Witness also will pay the money not to have to turn in those papers. So I'm glad you're...
Witness, I mean, not Jehovah's Witness, but the government controls basically the church and religion. Anyway.
You muted yourself. We can't hear you. You muted yourself. Mute yourself.
I was talking to my kid in the background to make sure he go brush his teeth. He just got done eating dinner.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, I don't want y'all to hear me. I don't want y'all to...
Oh, that's okay. I thought you muted yourself by accident.
I thought you were still talking, Joe.
I asked him a question, and then I seen somebody was doing something he wouldn't had no business doing, so I had to mute my mic to set him straight.
All right.
Ask your question again. Oh, he's telling his kids.
Yeah, he's telling his kids.
What was the question?
Well, basically what he said, that most churches are run by the government, and that's a possibility, of course. That is one big conspiracy. But if that was the case, actually, money from the Jehovah's Witness Church, but they don't do anything about all the pedophilia cases, and and actually I know two women at school, education for graphic design and one of basically for the liberal arts, and in both of those schools a woman that was a Jehovah's Witness with the Jehovah's Witness at my school, and both were molested in their church. So that made me think for a start, well, I only know two Jehovah's Witness women, and they were both molested.
Okay,
so
Artis.
I thought that was very strange.
Artis, we're on Don's experiments, and Stan.
Okay, I know.
It's probably best to stick on that one. It's very sad and horrible.
Yeah,
I don't know if he wants to talk about it either, or is it things?
Just want to give just an explanation, short explanation. I already finished, so just to show the people what they are doing. Okay, go ahead, Don. Sorry for the interruption.
Thanks, Artis.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, I understand. My mother's sisters, she had a couple sisters that were witnesses, and once you're in there, it's hard for them to get out. and their husbands were elders and or anything, so they ended up killing themselves. A couple of my kids because of it. So
that's how, because you are shunned. If you want to get away from the Jehovah's Witnesses, so you want to leave them, you're often expelled from the whole community and also kicked out of your house. So you're on your own then.
Yeah. Yeah. Just recently, my wife and her mother had a spat here during the summertime, and my wife just came out and told us, "I'm an atheist now, Mom," and she didn't take that too well, so she hasn't spoke to us in about 4 months now.
I'm hoping for you that it gets solved. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Don.
Well, she's at no great loss over it, but her mother, she may or may not come around, but it's like her mother did send her a card saying, "If you want to talk," and it's like, we're like, "Well, we don't have any problem with it. You're the one with the problem."
Yeah, we want to talk.
We're not hurt by it anyway, so we do life.
No love lost. No love lost.
Yeah, no, that's it. No love lost.
Oh.
But is there anything else you guys are wanting to know about the water stuff, or any other questions?
I was wondering whether you would come back a different day when we've got Weedy the Doc, the free energy guy, around, and maybe you and him can have a chat about things, because I'm sure he'd be so interested in some of the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, sure, that's not a problem. I did a lot of talks, interviews. I had there was some internet radios that called me and did interviews on Stan Meyers research stuff, and so I've done a lot of interviews and the Stan Meyers stuff. And there's a lot of stuff out there. What's his name? James Allen Roby or something like that. He was into the free energy movement stuff, and he called me, and I was supposed to be on for like 15 minutes, and we ended up going an hour with the interview. He just kept going and going with it, and I was pretty. It's been a few years since I've looked at it or dabbled in it, but little foggy on different subjects. But I was pretty good at what Stan was saying and doing, and there's still always this little concern in the back of your head, did Stan actually, get this to work, or was he just dragging out his to get it finished? But he must have had something, because he convinced a lot of people, and you can't money unless you show him something up front. So I believe he had something there. I think that maybe he found it, got it working, and then he lost it and he wasn't able to ever get it to work again. It could have been a fluke that it happened and he wasn't able to redo it. I don't know, but he died before anything ever came of it. But he did go a long time without really showing or proving much to anybody. But from all his writings and the stuff I've researched and read and experimented with on my own, everything he says that would happen, as I played with my own circuits and sample cell here, it works just like he said it works. It's just a matter of getting it over the edge. And to me, it was always, I just never had a lot of money to dabble in this stuff and other hobbies and toys. And then being laid off in the wintertime is when I would pull it out and experiment. But it just got to the point where you really need fields to help out with this, and right now I think somebody that is really knowledgeable in transformer designs and constructions would go a long ways in getting this thing working. Just don't know.
What's a good way to use free energy on water around your household?
Oh yeah, it's used for anything. You can. It is even had plans to use it as a desalination plant, because it works great for desalinating salt water. Because once you produce the gases go out, and all the contaminants, the salt, will stay in the cell. So the gas comes out, you burn it, recondenses back into water, and you drain it back into a can, and now you've got distilled water. So you can make fresh water out of salt water. anywhere in the world with very little power.
Yeah, but I want the type of water where I can shower with it, you know? Like that's
Oh
why
yeah.
I'm like, how could we get free water energy where we could actually it would come out of our pipes like that, you know?
Yeah, well, I see a lot of people talking about distilled water, drinking distilled water, how it works good for your body, soul, or whatever. There's been a lot of claims on distilled water, but that's what this cell does: is it makes the hydrogen gas from the water, and then if you light it and burn it, it recondenses back into water again, and it's distilled at that point. There's no impurities in it. It's clean. So you can take any kind of stagnant water and run it through the system and have yourself clean drinking water as a byproduct. So he had everything figured out on this. You could use it
Yeah,
practically.
we have somebody, Robert Forsh. He is a photographer. He only drinks distilled water, but he microwaved some water and then fed it to his plants. It killed the plants.
Oh, the microwave, yeah. I remember when I first started researching this, people were using MOTS, microwave oven transformers, to try and do electrolysis with. It's a very high current transformer, so you have to modify them a little bit. But I remember someone posting an article of a Russian scientist who studied the microwaves when they first came out for a machine, and he deemed them completely hazardous to human health, the microwave oven.
Microwaving our food, eating plastic cheese, got plastic on our feet so we don't get the negative ions from the ground. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends in my gyrocopter club. We have a club that flies these things. His wife had come down with some cancer, and she was blaming it on the extreme use of microwaves. So she stopped using her microwave and was going to get treatments and stuff. What she had isn't terminal, but she somewhere had gotten the knowledge in her head that it was microwave ovens will cause this, which is probably true.
I don't really microwave. I don't know when you it's not that maybe you shouldn't know this before, but being a flat earther, you look into so many different things. You start thinking, well, it's not that I didn't even know about the meat, but everything changes. I don't really want to eat meat anymore. You know, look at milk now and eggs and just the whole thing. And the whole thing has changed for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. It kind of turns your whole world upside down when you start looking at it with open eyes.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes you want to become a nudist and just live out in the forest or the woods, naked and afraid, with no clothes, no manufactured clothes, no manufactured food or anything.
No bleach,
just naked, just
no fluoride.
The processed with chemicals.
A mobile phone. It was actually on the radio. Was actually on the radio a couple of days ago. A whole segment that the doctors were telling that a lot of children nowadays have severe eye problems, or getting more and more children are getting severe eye problems because of their mobile phone. And what they basically have is the same almost as night blindness. So what they don't can do, and they can't see in the darkness anymore. Most of those children, and you could actually talked about it, that actually the nerves were damaged in the eyes of the children because they are staring the whole time very into a light source very close by that light source, and therefore they get a sort of night blindness. And the severe cases also had such a big damage to their nerves in their eyes. They actually had to have very strong glasses on to actually see and that eye specialist gets more and more children, and also we talk to other eye specialists. There are more and more children having severe eye problems because they are looking into on the mobile phone the whole day. So probably in the next years there will be a lot of people actually blind because of their mobile phone.
Could be that. Yeah.
And
That as well as the.
It's of course with children, because children are still growing.
Sure,
And
it's
that's
interfering with
therefore,
the growth.
yeah, indeed.
That and the microwave radiation coming off the phone if you're talking on it a lot, holding it right up to your head.
Yep.
So from now on, when I talk on my phone, I'm just gonna keep my headphones with me. Tell me how to have phone up to my head.
Well, what I learned back in the day, actually, when we had the first computer class. Yeah, that's how old I am. Basically, the first computer classes, nobody knew about computers. They were introduced at school. And basically what the teacher was telling, the regulations for a screen, the distance from your head, is when you sit and you basically the distance between your shoulder and your fingertips, if you put them in front of you. So if you reach out your arms straight ahead of you, the screen of your computer must be further than that. That were the regulations back in the 80s for PC monitors. But you don't learn it anymore, but I still remember it because I was looking.
You don't learn all the right things anymore.
Yeah.
Like you built the pyramids and that, and telling us really what's going on rather than lying to us and making fake wars.
Yeah. Shoot, everything they make.
Well, we very much Oh, carry on then, Joe.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead, sister. I mean, sister.
I wasn't sure how much longer Don wanted to stay. A bit longer, Don, or have you? Is this enough time for you?
Yeah, I can go. I can go probably any time. The wife just got home from work. She got dinner started, so.
Okay.
Something else.
So your appetite about to make you leave us. It's cool though. It's cool, bro. We still love you. We still love you, man.
It's bad enough. It's bad enough. I gotta wait till 6:30 at night for dinner. You know.
Oh.
Did
very
you have
much
any
appreciate
other,
you coming.
Was there anybody
about it?
I was gonna say, was there any other questions from people in the chats at all that might have any questions?
You just asked it. Before Don goes, chat room. Would you like to ask Don? Got to leave it for a couple of minutes or whatever it is, 10, 20 seconds for it to catch up.
Yeah, this is something I always will probably go back to eventually, but right now I kind of took all the coals out of the fire and just left one in there, and I want to get that project done first, and then I'll start dabbling in other things again.
You seem such a placid kind of person, but you're a daredevil.
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, so that might say something.
Yeah, in your little sort of what was it called again? The gyrocopter? No,
gyrocopter.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a gyrocopter. Yeah, I got it right then.
I'm looking in the chat now, and a lot of people are saying, Don, it was a nice chat. Latest phone, Don, thanks for everything. Great show. It was a pleasure listening to Don. So a lot of people are find it great to listen to your explanation about Stan Meyer and what you were doing on your channel.
Yeah, not everybody's used to like doing what you do, like with gases and water and experiments and gyrocopters, building aeroplanes.
My background is basically mechanical. Anything mechanical, I'm extremely good at. So seeing this and hydrogen power, water powered cars, like there, I got to try that. So I
Can I
jumped
hire
in.
you for my own personal mechanic?
Yeah,
I need
do
my
it my
antifreeze
own.
flushed and I need my antifreeze flushed and re-entered.
Yeah, when it comes to cars, I can repair anything from bumper to bumper. I've rebuilt many engines, transmissions, automatic, manual, rear end, you name it. I can tear it apart and fix it. I'm kind of a jack of all trades.
Even the modern cars with computers, well, that's what they've more or less got, isn't it?
The jack of all trades, master of none, like me.
You have the special tools for those because the new cars have to have special tools, even a nut thing to take your wheel off.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
for your
Well, if you look at my YouTube name, or my name is Dynodon. That Dino stands for dynamometer. I used to have a garage with a chassis dyno, custom tuning and high performance work on cars. People bring their cars in and want to soup them up, and it'd be whether it was carbureted car or fuel injected car. I could take programs and reflash the computer in the car and get the best performance out of it using this dynamometer. Started calling me Dino Don, so that's where that came from.
Oh, so why did you stop that then?
I wanted to finish my airplane,
Okay.
so it was always my love as a kid. Every time I'd be outside and hear an airplane, I look up. Ever since I can remember, I've just loved airplanes. Always wanted to be a pilot, and once I got old enough and the money, I went and got my private pilot license. But I've always loved airplanes ever
They're
since I was a
fascinating.
kid.
They're fascinating vehicles.
Yeah, well, the
Aircraft. I mean,
gyrocopter. Yeah, the gyrocopter was the first aircraft I built, and then I started work on this other airplane, and I built 3 different gyrocopters, and I got the two-place ultralight I fly in now, and then the project I'm working on now, and I was into hunting and all kinds of hobbies, drag racing, but always motorsports. I love motorsports. I don't watch any sports, football, hockey, baseball, soccer, none of that. I'm a motorsports kind of guy.
Yeah, I said Daredevil, didn't I?
Well, I've gotten a lot calmer over the years now. I'll be 54 here in a couple months, so I'm really tame from what I used to be.
oh hell, you younger.
Really?
He's younger than my youngest uncle and my mom.
That gyrocopter, that thing, because I mean, you're almost sitting outside in that, even though you're sitting in a frame.
Well, the one video I have on my YouTube channel is taken with the camera mounted right on the gyro. You can see my feet while I'm flying it. Find that video. It's a short
Oh,
video.
I think I've watched your stuff before.
So that was at our annual picnic we have for our experimental aircraft chapter. It was during we had one of the hurricanes come up the East Coast, and nobody flew into the picnic because the winds were too high that day. Helicopters, I can fly in 40-mile-an-hour winds.
I've actually found the video already on your channel. Yeah, they
Go
can
on then,
fly.
show his video then, artist. Because
Yeah, you
Don
can
can
show-
talk over the top.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Karen. Great idea.
Yeah, and then he probably has to go after that.
Oh, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
And thanks, Don.
You
It
can
was
talk
actually
over.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting all of you. Yeah, there's no problem. Whenever you want to have another chat, just send me a message. And
I will. I will, Don.
but in this video here, there comes a point where I'm flying into the wind and I throttle back and I can get to a 0 airspeed where it's not going anywhere. Long enough, it'll actually push me backwards. The aircraft will go backwards. This was from a few years back now. But with a gyrocopter, they're slow to take off because you have to wait for the rotor blades to get up to flying speed. So they don't take off as quick as an airplane at times. Really windy that day. It was like winds gusting to 30 miles an hour. Most airplanes won't even fly when it gets to 10.
Man, that looks scary as hell.
I
I feel like
know.
I feel like I'm you right now, being in this thing, and I'm just thinking like a bunch of negative thoughts, like, oh man, something's gonna go wrong. Anything can go wrong. That looks scary. It's kind of giving me an adrenaline rush though at the same time.
That I think that's the point right there where I go backwards. The wind's pushing me backwards.
I bet you loved that, didn't you, Don?
Oh, it's a blast to fly. It's like a dirt bike in the sky. You like going out throwing a dirt bike around real hard. That's what I do with this.
Most of us would have, excuse me, would have wet ourselves, and you loved it.
Hey, look at all this flash. I just thought I had to throw that out there.
Yeah, flat horizon.
Yeah, flat horizon, and you don't even have to go that high up to see it either.
Yeah, that's only a couple 100 feet right there. That's probably less than
Yeah,
500.
see it flat.
And yet you can see them trees that's probably about 100 miles past by the horizon.
Well,
Easy.
actually, the lake is right in front of me at that point. Lake Erie. It's probably 10 miles out.
I'm talking about all them trees deep in the background. That's only about 10 miles.
Now you can see the lake there, the blue.
Oh, you said
It's
lake.
kind of
Lake, yeah.
lake, yeah, lake. Yeah, I live right by Lake Erie.
And how far away is that from that gyrocopter, do you reckon that?
It might be 10 miles or so.
Is that the lake that
Well,
you're
it's
above right now?
drop on 10 miles, and it's sitting right there.
Yeah, you should be able to see it right there on the far horizon, that blue line. That's Lake Erie.
Have I seen it? The blue
Oh,
bit. Yeah, it's just blue colour.
man, that is beautiful. That is one beautiful foot. And you said you did this in 2008, 2013? When?
You'd have to look at the date on the video.
Okay, I definitely will. What it says?
But a golf course there or something.
It's a private
2011.
air. It's a private
Oh, so just
airfield.
over 6 years ago. Just over 6 years ago. And the footage still looks amazing for it to be 6 years old.
Well, that's a Sony high def camcorder.
Oh, so you get what you pay for. You pay for expensive equipment. It should give you expensive quality. So yeah.
It was only like a $300 camera. They're probably cheaper now, but that's what I paid for that one.
Lord, you said only $300. I wish I could only get $300 out of my bank account to go put one down on P900 or something, you know.
Well, I just bought the P900 a couple months ago, and that was $500.
Oh Lord, I bet you ain't.
A P900 camera worker there, the lady with the flowers.
I bet you ain't put
We're
that
quite a
camera
few
down
members
either.
of P900 cameras.
I
And
bought,
Stan, who's
I bought
A
the
lot of
camera.
people in the community got them.
Stan is in the chat room. He uses 360 cameras.
Those
Do you
are
have a
more.
360 camera?
That'd be awesome if we did, right? We had a 360.
Don, do you have a 360 camera?
What was that?
Do you have a 360 camera?
No, I haven't, but I was watching one of your hangouts where you guys are talking about them. They're pretty interesting.
Yeah, Stan Smith.
Yeah, I was watching one of your hangouts a couple weeks back.
What
The
if we
artist
had
is
one on
showing some of your posts on Facebook, YouTube there.
Yeah, so people can see how his site looks, his YouTube site.
Trotters has joined us. Trotters.
Hey, what's good, everybody?
Hello, Michael. Michael, Don's going to go in a minute because his wife's come home and she's cooking the dinner.
Okay, awesome.
Do you have any questions or anything? Did you watch any of the Hangout?
I just caught the last 10 minutes. Yeah, I really am not up to speed on anything, so I'll have to just watch the video later.
Well, Don, it's been an absolute pleasure because I know that you want to go really, and we will ask you to come back. And that was very interesting. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm so glad that you got on the Hangout.
Yeah, like I say, I'm sorry about the troubles, but it's like Firefox threw us a curveball just from yesterday till today.
Well, people are a little bit used to it. That was the Sun and Moon always have some technical difficulties, so don't worry.
Somebody always has a little bit of difficulty.
Yeah, we are.
We had
Yeah.
a very hard time yesterday trying just to get working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm so glad it did because it's been
yeah.
it's been great talking to you. I know that artists was so excited, weren't you, artists?
Yeah, I was excited the whole day because I was very interested in all the stories you had about the Stan Meyers car, and that you actually went there and saw the car yourself and everything that you were researching, doing research on it, and yeah, I was very excited to meet you, and you explained it in a great way. I have to rewatch it, of course, because my first language is German, so English is not my first language. So therefore, I have to watch it a couple of times to get the grasp of everything you explained. But yeah, you explained it in a great fashion. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, actually, my name Gable is German. My great-grandparents were from Germany.
Uh-huh.
So
Maybe next time, even if Weedy the Doc can't come on or whatever, because sometimes he does work away from home, but you can tell us some more stories. He said you did quite a lot of presentations about Stan Mars' work, so I'm sure people would like to hear more.
yeah, there was back when I was doing that stuff is when I was working with the guy. So I was the one who put the information out on the internet that all this stuff was up for sale, and I was being used as an intermediate where if somebody wanted to make an offer on the stuff, they would contact me. I would vet them a little bit with the questions and answers from the seller, and then I would transfer the information to them because I didn't release the owners' names. They didn't want their name out there. So I took all the calls, fielded all the calls, and then when I found somebody that was potentially legitimate, I would give the information to David Hallbrook, and then he would say, okay, I'll talk to him. And then they talked money. I never talked money. I just made the connections for him. So I worked with Dave for over a year doing this. Meantime, he paid me back by letting me borrow this stuff and play with it and learn, and that's how I was able to get all the information I could. And then I waited a year after they sold everything. I seen that they hadn't done anything with it since then. I was like, okay, I've waited a year now. I'm not going to be stepping on anyone's toes. I released all the stuff I had. Just shared it with the net.
It's great that you actually had enough time to photograph everything and do research. Yeah.
Yeah, I had some of that stuff for a couple of weeks at a time. So I had plenty of time to take apart what I felt safe with taking apart and putting back together, but I was able to get pictures of every single circuit board that was there. So it's all out there.
Oh, that's great.
Up till that point, there was nothing available for anybody to go from. So now everybody's replicating all the pieces and parts and 3D printing stuff, and they had nothing to go on before that. So information out there for
You
people.
think it's moved on quite a bit then? Like what you've done is helped move it along a bit.
Yeah.
Just before I come on this Hangout, I went on YouTube and did a current search for Stan Meyers, and I see some familiar names still from people that were playing with it back when I was, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of new stuff out there lately. Posting videos from before, and some of my stuff people have reposted of stuff I've put out there, but I haven't really been. I noticed that some of the websites that I did hang out on are now gone. They're no longer there.
Oh.
Don't want all this stuff to really come out, though, do they? They don't. It can come out in dribs and drabs and not be connected. That's fine. But, someone like artist or a researcher whoever starts putting two and two three and three and together, and yeah, and they don't really want that, do they?
Yeah,
I mean,
the problem,
you didn't even know about your flag.
right? Yeah, the problem with stand stuff is you really need an electronics background to understand what's going on. All these circuits and stuff that were designed for this system was by his twin brother Stephen, who's still alive, but he's in his 70s now. But he's the one who designed and built all the circuits for Stan. Stan told him what he needed it to do, and Stephen built it.
I never knew he had a twin brother.
What was that?
Well, it skipped my mind that he had a twin brother. Maybe I read it, but it didn't really sink in.
He was a twin, Stan and Steve.
Okay.
And last I heard, he was in a home.
Oh.
Lives in Missouri.
How old would he have been if he'd been alive now?
He was, I think, 58 and 98.
Right. So he'd be
So
70.
he'd be in his 70s, yeah, around 70. And his
A lot of people
brother,
stand up.
yeah, and his brother and him, David Holbrook, told me that Stan and Steve had this love-hate relationship. They get along for a while, and then they hate each other for a while. And Steve was trying to make his own little alternator line for doing electrolysis, and Stan accused him of trying to steal his ideas, so he threatened to sue him and everything. So there was a love-hate relationship there between the two of them.
Yeah.
They weren't alike then.
No, they were completely off. Stan actually was in the Army, I guess, and he worked on radars. And that's where he kind of come up with the idea of the resonance thing, because it's kind of an electronics thing. But I don't know if he worked on them or he just watched them or what he did, but background in radar, which helped. I mean, it all basically does the same thing as, it all deals with the resonance in one form or another. So.
Yes, that's what the researchers in our group, even if they're not quite doing the same things as you, it's all to do with frequencies.
Yeah, it's all harmonics and resonance and frequencies, just like Tesla says.
Yeah, you probably maybe saw some hangouts I did about those electrical discharges on the Earth that you can clearly see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole place has been hit with these enormous great electrical arkings, and a positive and a negative strike, like in the land and out the land.
Yeah.
And which is the bit where the trees grow, artists? Lots of trees go around one of them.
Most of the time, I think it's the zone, the strike zone, actually. So you have a positive, just like those Lindenberg. Yeah, just like those Lindenberg figures. Maybe you know them, those Lindenberg. I can maybe show a picture of them. Basically, in the zone of those Lindenberg figures, and often also in the discharge that is actually make the ground sink down. That's where the trees are most of the time on the mountains. There is the iron-rich minerals, or they are certain kind of metals are into the mountain and often in the sinkhole or the crater, you can call it also. That's where the trees are often. And also in the strike zone itself is most of the time did some research and also watched some YouTube videos that actually in that zone is where the most trees are often, not always, but often. And the highest trees are in that area. So for some reason, because that area attracts minerals and metals, it also probably attracts the soil that trees can grow on better. So it fertilizes the ground.
Thanks for that, Artis. Thank you for that. Yeah, anyway, we're learning and growing, and Artis has been finding all this stuff out. It's amazing.
Well, basically, it was because of Chris Monkey's work. It's an ongoing process on the Chris Monk's work, because Chris Monk basically laid the foundation of the actually electrical discharges on the Earth and electrical arkings, and I looked further into it.
Yeah, you do. On a Sunday night, the ancient structures or ancient history night. I don't want to keep Don more than he wants to stay, because he says he wants to go, really. He's been on probably about another half an hour after he said he wanted to go.
I don't have the problem staying longer if you need.
Well,
We'll just carry on chatting then. Yeah, carry on
don't
chatting.
want to keep you.
Yeah, actually, I'm sitting here chewing on a steak while I'm listening. So go ahead.
You have your dinner already. Okay, that's nice of your wife that she did it in that fashion.
Yeah, so far she hasn't complained about the internet access.
Okay.
Okay, you just carry on talking for a minute. I just want to go and get a drink, okay? So you lot carry on talking.
Well, you already know about those electrical discharges I talked about, so yeah, you can see them all over the Earth, so that's very interesting. You probably saw my presentations on it, I think, Don.
What was that?
You probably saw my presentation on those electrical discharges.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay, I can give you a short version, otherwise we will be more than a couple of hours. But basically what I did some research about, I'm still going on. It's an ongoing thing on Chris Monk's work. And you can see my screen probably.
Yes, I can.
Okay, that's fine. This is basically the discharges in powdered sand, certain kinds of sand. And he did Dr. C.J. Ransom did electrical discharge experiments in sand. So you can find more information on the internet about that. And you can see those electrical discharges look a lot like electrical discharges you can find on the Earth. This is another guy who did experiments. This is William George Armstrong in the early 1800s. He did some electrical discharge in so also certain different kinds of sand and also different kinds of powdered metal, and also fuse those metals with sand, and then this discharges. So this is a positive and a negative. I don't know which actually the positive or negative, but I think this is the positive and this is the negative. And you can see with different kinds of sands and different kinds of powdered metal, you got different kinds of figures. Here, it also already looks like those certain kinds of discharges on the Earth. This almost looks like those Lindenberg figures. It can also looks like if you look at the mountain range, you can also see this kind of figures. This is another one. Just some. It almost looks like a human eye. If you actually look at the human eye, it looks a lot like an electrical discharge in powdered sand and powdered.
That puts me in the mind of an amoeba, kinda.
Yeah, and you can see here all those. This is the human eyes basically, and all those nerves. And this is a Lindenberg figures. Basically, you can put apart a microwave and put clippings of the microwave and hook it up to the microwave system, and then you turn it on. And it's what is interesting that if you actually does this kind of Lindenberg discharge in the wood, actually when you spray soda over it, so you pour soda over it, it works better. The Coca-Cola works the best for some reason. So, and then you can get this electrical discharge, and the positive and negative will search for each other and meet at the end.
And it's basically an electrolyte. The cola acts like an electrolyte.
Yeah, but it's interesting. This is also a Lindenberg figure. That's what they called. If you actually look in the Egypt in the desert, here you have also very dark round discharge, and actually you can see also the same shape here, and it also comes across, comes here one. And if the mountain is turned to rubble, you can see it's loose rubble. That this is actually the mountain, this mountain over here. It's actually this mountain. And then you can see there's no water over here. You can see those electrical discharge shapes all over the earth. Here, another one. Even in mountains. So maybe, yeah, this was also, maybe it can also be caused by the weathering of the water, but it also could be
That's beautiful.
electrical discharge. And because the electrical discharge carves out the rock, the water flows into that place because, yeah, that's the lowest part of the mountains. And this is actually underground. You also have the same type. If you look at caves in the ground, a lot, they also look a lot like those electrical discharge Lindenberg figures. And this is actually
like veins of the earth.
This is in South. Yeah, and this is in Botswana, Africa. It also looks, and again, because the water flows in this, because it's the lowest part, the water flows naturally in there. So the most of the trees are there. This is another strike zone. This is this crater you can see is the Goose's Bluff crater in Australia. You can see those mountains. It's almost like a ripple effect. They push the side. And actually, this is a close-up of those of the Goose Bluff crater. And this is nearby. This is Mount Connor. You can see also, just like I showed before, with those discharges in sand, you have an outer rim. Then this is pushed up a bit down, and this mountain is basically in the middle, is pushed up again. Here it appears to be pushed out of the ground. And again, you can see a lot of trees on that surface and surrounded also, but most of the time, not always, of course, most of the times a lot of trees grow in that area. This is the distance. You can see the strike zone. You can see it's a very strange mountain range. And normally mountains don't look like this. Looks totally different. And here's that pushed up mountain. It is basically pushed down, so the positive and the negative discharge. Most of the time, the mountains that are pushed out of the ground are metal rich or mineral rich. This is near that site, very near. This is a gold mine near Mount Connor. It's the Nicholson fine gold mine. So again, near that area, there's a gold mine. This is just another example of a crater. This is the Wolf Creek crater. And this is nearby, again, mountains that appear to be pushed out of the ground. Near that Wolf Creek crater are, again, round this shape. You have always often near those electrical discharge boulders that are very round, or they almost look they were liquid at once. Like you can also melt metal, and at one point the metal, if you have metal that is basically powder, and you heat it, they turn into small balls, and then they basically attract each other. That's what it looks often when you heat metal. They first turn into balls, and then on big fluid mesh. And here you have around this side a lot of balls, and then this is in petrified forest, near the petrified forest in Arizona. You have all those mountains, but they are flattened at the top. So no pointy mountains, all flat. So they appear to be pushed out of the ground, just like the last one here. Then, yeah. And then near that you have all those petrified forests. So the electrical discharge could be.
Hey, real quick, artist. Hey, Sonny, I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I really do appreciate you having me today. And I'm trying to join the next show.
Thanks for being there, and we really like your new icon.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
It's a great icon, yeah. Great job.
Thanks. I'm gonna try to make another meme. Have make another one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that parent make another one for me. Actually, I got one. I got one. I can put in the back chat or whatever. I might use that one day. It's funny.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a oblique cemetery, and it got Neil deGrasse Tyson as the gatekeeper dressed up in a Reaper costume or whatever, because that's exactly what he is, a gatekeeper. He withholds true information. So, but it got oblique cemetery. Everybody is basically just Walking Dead zombies. It's funny. It's like it tells 1,000 words just looking at the picture.
Yeah, indeed, the picture tells 1,000 words. Also, I made some time ago. I also made a joke drawing. I hope you like this one. In a galaxy far, far into Photoshop.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man? A satellite took that picture, man. Don't you be giving
You
out
made
wrong
that
information?
meme, Artist, you made that meme.
Huh? No, actually, that photograph you saw is from the NASA site. So it's actually on the NASA site.
Oh, Joe's gone now.
Yeah. He said goodbye with this
Yeah, he did.
flat Earth sign. Yeah. It was great having him. Yeah, he always has a lot of great views on all kinds of topics. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, Don, I go and join Joe's channel when he's streaming.
Okay. Speaking of the photos there, I was going to say it makes me think of the Mars rover that's been over there on Mars for what, 10 plus years? All we got to do is ask NASA what batteries they used in that thing. Are on Earth for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, they are great batteries indeed. Yeah.
We have no battery technology that'll last that.
Especially lithium, aren't they?
No, not when that thing went out. I don't think lithium was even available yet.
No.
Well, Mars doesn't exist. Not like they tell us it does.
I mean,
Never been to Mars. They've never had a rover on there. They've
Yeah.
never even been to the moon.
just think how long does a battery last in your car? You know, you might get 5 or 6 years out of a good battery.
Oh,
And this
then,
thing's been in space for how many years? And it was probably some old lead acid based battery.
yeah.
I know how they did it. CGI.
They just went out to the desert and changed the battery in it.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, I've even seen videos that actually the footage of Mars looks a lot like the footage of certain
Salt Lake.
part of the world. Yeah, Salt Lake. Yeah.
We were looking at a salt lake last night. I said, Artist, it looks like Mars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actually places on the Earth that you can easily simulate a Mars mission. Yeah,
Yeah, just put a red filter on the camera.
and you're good to go.
Well, you're going to learn now because you just bought a P900 camera, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been meaning to get out and do some lake shots. I want to see if I can get any images of Canada from where I'm at.
Oh yeah.
How far away is Canada?
Well, from Erie, where I'm close to, I think the closest point is like between 13 and 18 miles, and there's a long point where they have a.
You're going to get that.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can see the lighthouse from Erie, from like the peninsula on Erie, where I live, Erie, Pennsylvania. I should be able to see the lighthouse on Long Point in Canada. It's only like 13, 18 miles, and if I can see that, then it's flat.
And also, does Lake Erie freeze over? So you can also do it at the winter time when it is frozen, maybe.
Well, for the last few years, it hasn't froze over.
Okay.
But this year it might. We've got some early snow this year, and it was above freezing, so most everything we had from the other night has already begun melting. But it doesn't freeze over every year, but sometimes it does. But the problem I noticed when it does freeze over, lakeshore, because of the waves crashing in, you get this huge pile of chunks of ice, that could be 5, 10 feet high.
Yeah.
So you'd have to get out past that stuff in order to get a shot across the lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't think it really froze over that much last year.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
So
been things.
what kind of temperatures do you get then?
This past week, it's been below freezing for almost 2 weeks straight. So it never reached, your temp 0 degrees. But it's been for Fahrenheit, it's been in the 20s. So it's a few degrees 0 for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 10 degrees or so below
Pretty
0.
cold and horrible here. My hands have been cold all night, which means and I saw the gritter out about 2-3 o'clock this afternoon, and I thought they expect a big frost, don't they?
Yeah, we had frost this morning when I put my dog out, and then when I finally got up out of bed, it was already melted. And the snow's melting off the roof, dripping everywhere. Because we'd just gotten hit with that. Well, when I first contacted you, we were right in the middle of a lake effect snow squalls and that, dumping a couple feet of snow.
Stan in the chat room says, tell Don he needs to start filming the moon.
Filming the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Stan's favourite thing in the sky is the moon.
I got the P900 just in time to do the solar eclipse, but I didn't have time to get a filter. So I went on YouTube and looked and a filter out of Mylar film, which I had some Mylar. I use it for insulation on my coils for that Stan Meyers project. So it was one of those silver survival blankets. That's Mylar film. So I cut a chunk of that out and taped it onto some poster board and fit it around the end of the lens. And I went out and I was able to take images of the sun with this. And they come in looking, you don't get that color with the normal filter. So your friend that does those 360 camera, I had those images where he was asking for of the eclipse. But we didn't have full totality. It was like 80% here. But he was trying to see if the moon was physically there or not. And I thought, well, these pictures are a little different than everybody else's, that they're a gray color. They're not the red color. And it might be a little more useful to him if he wants them. I'm
sure Stan won't mind seeing your photographs. You can email them to me and just put your longitude and latitude on there so he knows where they are.
Yeah, because it was like 80% totality, and I took them every 10 minutes from start to finish. So there's probably a dozen or so there.
So what else don't you do then, Don? What else do you do?
Well, lately I got a Mustang, an '83 Mustang that I'm going to be restoring, and I've got all the upholstery material right now. I'm going to start sewing up new upholstery for the interior of the car. I've got all original fabric.
I went to America when I was sweet 16. My aunt lived in California, so San Jose. So I went to Santa Monica. The neighbors all had Mustangs and things.
What year was that?
Oh, 1979, a long time ago.
Okay, that's the first year of this body style, the Mustang. I had one of these Mustangs when I was 19 when I was in service. And after like 10 years, and he had it, and he just got rid of it about 3 years ago. So, and restore it back to original, and just use it for a summer cruiser. Have T-tops and everything. Take out and go to car cruisings with. So it's a full, basically frame up restoration. I'm going to be starting on that.
You like a few projects on the go, don't you, Don?
Yeah. Well, Lisa, I'm not starting on it per se, but in the wintertime, I can't work on the airplane because of the epoxy. I can't glue anything. So can't glue, can't paint, and it's too cold.
I actually went to Detroit in 2001.
Yeah, but I got the original fabric that Ford used on the cars originally. It's 30 some years old, and I bought all brand new fabric to reupholster all the seats. So I'll but once the plane's finished, then I'll go full head on with the car, and after
we'll
that,
have to keep abreast of what you're doing now, won't we? Right, he's got it going. Right, he's flying. It's the films.
Yeah, I'll have films up there once I get the airplane done.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually have another YouTube channel just by Don Gable.
Oh.
A couple videos I started putting on there for Flat Earth. But one of them from flying in my little 2-place ultralight. I did a 360 degrees so you can see the horizon. You know, it never changes. It just stays level and flat in a whole 360-degree turn. But I got like 3 videos I think on there. Don Gable with a Gabel.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just
That's where I was
sending
going to put.
that room. Hope Stan sees that.
That's where I'm going to put my flat Earth research stuff when I get out with the P900.
Maybe you can post a link to Karen that she can also put the link to that channel under this Hangout video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a YouTube channel. YouTube, just look for Don.
Don Gable. I put that on there.
Okay.
Spell it Gabel. Everybody likes to spell it LE instead of EL is all.
Mm-hmm. I actually went to Detroit in 2001 when the city of Detroit had their 300-year anniversary. And I went there and went to the Henry Ford Museum. And also what was interesting in the Henry Ford Museum, if I remember it correctly, there was actually a Team Model Ford, or a car that looks like a Team Model Ford. It was made of aluminium.
Oh, wow.
And you also had that house that you could basically fold up. It was a round house. Basically, you can fold it up and put it behind your car. So it was a fold-up house, almost like a globe. Yeah, half
Like
a
a
globe. Yeah, almost like a pop-up tent. And I think they are restoring it this year. Doing some restoration. There was actually there was all kinds of mechanisms in that you had, and actually a rotating closet that you can hang your clothes, and then you can rotate it, and then it was on a rotating shelf basically, and they are restoring it now. And it was
like a Lazy Susan, huh?
Yeah.
Canned food, Lazy Susan storage in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Detroit now, it's a shell of itself. You know, there's not much there.
No, I also went to all those ruins, all those old factories, to the old Packard plant. That is in ruins, was shut down in the late 80s. Most of the plants were shut down in the late 80s, and you can still see all those ruins of those electric cars. Most of the time, they have now paintball games on those old factory sites.
Yeah, turn them into paintball fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've since they went to robotics and moved all the plants to Mexico and China and everywhere else. There's nothing left in Detroit.
No, there are kilometers upon kilometers of actually ruined houses, ruined old factories, and also neighborhoods that were near that factory where most of the people who worked at the factory lived. So when the factory shut down, the houses also got emptied, and people left that area. So you have many miles of empty land. Actually, they're also demolishing a lot of streets. So you actually only have the roads, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's a wasteland anymore. Everywhere's getting like that.
Yeah. They are raising the city of Detroit, basically. It's in a city that is becoming more green because they're growing all plants and all those empty lots now.
Getting rid of all the asphalt.
Well, it seems from artists' work that even if they were trying to sort of convince people that we were on a ball before, it was the 1960s that they turned us into a ball for sure. That's when it happened.
Yeah.
I know that we had NASA in the pictures, but that actually was the moment.
Well, they used the television to indeed push the globe narrative.
Yeah, get a television in every house. That was the first thing.
Or the mind controller.
Yeah, with their live vision, with their programming.
I bet you don't watch much television, do you, Don?
No, not anymore. I don't know. I just turned my DirecTV off about a month and a half ago. It never turned on because I never watched network television to begin with.
No.
I like,
Can't, can you? I mean, nobody's perfect, and you're going to watch the bit of this, and maybe you do want to watch the news or something, but
yeah.
you can't. I just can't. Whereas I used to have it on every day, watching soap operas, I don't have it on at all really anymore.
What I only do is in the morning time when I get up. Now most of the time it's even past the morning already, but I listen to the radio for an hour and just hear the news on the radio, and that's it.
Yeah, I watch the news in the morning just to catch the weather for the day, see what the weather's going to do.
Yeah, indeed, that's basically why I also listen to the radio, because of the weather report.
Can't believe the news, can you? Anyway, so
Yeah, you can't believe the news. I don't read papers, anything like that. It's all garbage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always a big sci-fi fan. You know, I love sci-fi. Even though I believe the world's flat, I still love science fiction. You know, I love Star Wars. I'm going to go see it tomorrow.
Oh,
some people got really upset about that part of it because space rockets, none of that's real.
Well, it's one of those things where I'm never going to be there, so I might as well enjoy watching it. You know, even though I believed it was all real and stuff, it's like, well, I'm never going to see it for myself. I'm never going to go out there, but I love watching it. Even though I know I can't go there now because it don't exist, it still doesn't bother me. I like watching it.
Well, sometimes you have to relax and just have a bit of a distraction.
Yeah, I mean,
Nowadays.
it's fantasy. It's science fiction. Yeah. That's all it
fiction.
is. Yeah. You gotta separate it from reality. That's the problem with TV. They call them shows reality TV shows, and there's no reality about it. It's not real.
No, it's most of the reality TV shows. Those are all hired actors.
Yeah, I've never watched sitcoms like that. I've never ever watched any. I've never watched Friends and Cheers or anything like that. Never.
Well, the only sitcom I watched back in the day was Seinfeld. That's it.
I've never watched him. I've seen some reruns, but I've never watched that stuff.
No. I only watched Seinfeld. That was basically the only thing I watched as a sitcom.
I'm a big Walking Dead fan. I love The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that film. Ellie's got the book, you know, the books round it, and her copy of the video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the comic books.
Mm.
Yeah, they just had their here a week ago, so didn't have anything to watch last night. I have to since I shut off my cable, I got to go to Amazon and pay $2 to watch the episodes.
Oh, that's too bad. You can still watch them, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can wait until they come out on DVDs and go rent them, but the next day I just go on Amazon, pay $2 and download the episode and watch it.
No. You can you can also do it in that fashion. It's probably cheaper than the whole package they sell you for a system.
Yeah. That's the only one I do it to. Everything else is I can live without it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like that, don't you? Other things are much more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the research is more important, and watching all kinds of flat Earth related topics on YouTube. YouTube is now my TV, basically. Only I can choose what I want to watch. Yeah.
Right. The stuff you were just talking about with all these craters and that, is this the same guy that put the video out about the craters on the moon? He was showing how to use electricity to form the craters. Is that the same guy?
No. Well, Chris Monk, who came on and did a presentation, reckons that the moon is a biscuit, basically.
Well, I was recently seeing a video.
Oh, you mean when he matches up the craters on the moon? Yeah, it could be.
The craters could have been formed on the moon by electrical discharges.
Yeah. Could be. It sounds like Chris Monk probably has talked about it.
Yeah, he was saying he believes that the craters on the moon are electrical discharges and not crater impacts.
Well, actually, if you look at the craters at the moon, some are, I don't know for sure the actually angle that they are, but some of the craters of the moon actually point directly to the Earth.
Right.
So therefore, there must be coming something from the Earth that hit the moon.
Sure.
Otherwise, we would be destroyed by something that came across. Yeah, I don't know. So it makes sense that because we always see the same face basically of the moon, only it wobbles a bit, but we see the same face. Only it turns a little bit clockwise. But some craters are actually facing the Earth. So therefore, yeah, they must be discharge form. It makes sense.
Yeah, they couldn't. The impacts couldn't have come because they'd had to get through the Earth to get to the moon.
Yeah.
And doesn't that just show you how close the moon is then?
That too, yes. Then the one thing that always puzzled me is anytime you ever see a meteorite through the sky, you see it in the night sky going, it always goes horizontally too.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like they're coming straight down. They always go across the sky.
Yeah, indeed.
I just seen one back at the beginning of the year. I drive Uber every now and then too. So when I was laid off last season, I was out driving Uber and taking some girls out to the local casino, and there goes this green glowing meteorite across the sky from right to left. They never
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, they're not coming straight down either. They're always going across the sky.
Yeah, they're always like they're going across the sky. I've never seen it. You always seem to be going horizontally, like the rockets, out into the ocean.
Yeah, like the most of the rockets. they only
oh my God, that really upset me when I realised that they, in a time lapse, you can see the rocket go up and then come down. Well, explode basically, explodes, and then the rest comes down.
You can also see a lot of.
Let's put all the politicians on a rocket if they think that those things go to the moon. Let's go on then, put them in one.
Yeah, and what Musk just sent another load of supplies up yesterday or so.
I saw one of the astronauts, one of the ones that looks like Methuselah. That one with her hair. He said, "Oh, we have to have serviettes. We go through loads of serviettes." She said, "The shuttle comes up once a week and brings us serviettes."
That's a load of crap.
Yeah, it is.
I love watching Jaron when he goes after those people. Yeah. That's a hoot.
Me too. Also liked it when
about it. We've got paused astronauts and all sorts of things.
I also like that video you made us aware that there are a lot of wires on that station, duct taped together sometimes, or with just a rope around it. All those loose wires floating around.
What? Yeah. They always ask me, "How do we know you're truly in space?" And they always do that little backflip.
Yeah.
The flips always are. How hard would it be for you if you push off to do a flip that you're going to stay in that exact spot and make a perfect circle, in a flip? If you try to flip in zero gravity, you're not going to do a perfect spin. You're going to kind of want to bounce off the roof or something. I don't know how you can't just lean forward and roll on a perfect pivot like that.
I think if you do a forward flip, you always also get a forward motion.
Right, you're not just going to stay in that one spot and.
No.
Well, I'm wondering how they do this, because I know we are water, but we're not like out the tap water, but we're liquid, and everything they do with liquid wobbles around and makes funny shapes and does all that. Well, surely if we were in those space stations and it really, really was what they're saying it was, because obviously affecting the water, then surely we'd be doing the same. They'd be sort of wobbling all over the place.
Yeah, there's a lot of fishy.
I've just made too many videos myself. The lies.
You ever see the videos of the zero-G plane where they got a cat? They have it on its back and they let it go to see if it will try to flip and land on its feet. You see how it's flopping around and it's not going anywhere. That's what the astronauts would do if they tried to do a flip or a roll in a.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just we'd react like the water.
The cat's just flailing around because it can't find the ground. You know, they're in a free fall, and the cat, so it's flipping and flopping, but it's definitely not it's not spinning on one spot. It was funny watching that cat, and then they did it with birds, chickens, and I'd seen a couple videos of that in that zero-G plane of how animals react in the zero-G atmosphere, and that would be the same thing the astronauts would experience. They'd be doing the same thing, flailing around. You'd be trying.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Your feet. They usually got their feet in straps, right, to hold them, so they're not bobbing around when they're talking to you. But then they do this flip, and it's like, well, what did they push off of? How did they get into that motion to move in the first place? It's like they just kind of tuck and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they did say that, because they said that there's nothing, it's not like you can run through it, and even if you start swimming, you won't go anywhere. And yet they're able to go round and round in circles, aren't they?
They're able to spin around that harness they got around their waist.
Yeah. They're trapeze acts, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I've done them. They've got CGI when the sweets are going through their hands. You know, then I mirrored a Bling Bling one. She does lots on NASA, and it's all about every time you saw a flash, you know, that's them splicing it all together and things out. All these droplets of water go off in that thing with all those wires sticking out. Like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or
it's not Earth. It's not Earth, that thing.
Yeah. And then the guy's going around the corner and his arm's disappearing before he gets through the doorway.
Yeah.
The astronaut going around the corner through.
You'd never survive in a vacuum, and I went and looked all that stuff up about the vacuum, and what they actually said. They said to this guy who went in that vacuum, the one from the 50s, 60s that they promote or they've let out. They said, "Well, see how long you can stand it in there." So they knew he wouldn't be able to survive in there. Oh, he's had a malfunction and he flipped over. They knew he wouldn't.
Yeah. That's why they don't use it for simulating a vacuum in space. They use a swimming pool because they practically killed that astronaut.
Yeah, but the really good thing is that
last thing he remembered was the water on his tongue was starting to boil and he passed out.
Yeah, but if you actually listen to the video, they say this one guy says to him, "We'll leave you in there to see how long you can stand it." Something like that. He says it's like, how could people think that they were testing out a proper working vacuum suit?
Yeah, right. And then my first video I did, it's on my Dynodon64 YouTube there. You can see this little sandblasting cabinet, and I was showing how vacuum would create, if you ever use a sandblasting cabinet, you stick a vacuum cleaner in it to suck out the dust while you're spraying. It makes the gloves in there suck straight out.
Right, yeah.
So I did a video with my little blasting cabinet showing that effect. Says this is what a spacesuit would look like in space. It would just, you would hardly be able to bend your elbows, pull your fingers in, or move your shoulders because the suit would stretch out like the Michelin Tire Man or the Stay Puft Marshmallow guy on Ghostbusters. You know, he'd look like that. You wouldn't be able to. He'd look like that little kid on the Christmas Story. Remember, mother puts him in all those winter coats and his arms are straight out and he can't move. And
the way I see it as well is that just say you actually could survive in a vacuum, you wouldn't be able to survive coming out. And then when do we get to the vacuum and get in the vacuum? You're either in one or you're not.
And then the other issue I see, the other problem I see is, all right, the atmosphere is tattooed to the planet, right? It spins with the planet. Okay, it's spinning 1,000+ mile an hour at the equator, but out at the edge of our atmosphere before you get into space, you're in space in the rocket or something, and you come back into the atmosphere, you're going to get hit with that 1,000+ mile an hour wind shear as soon as you cross over that threshold. You know, there's nothing moving in space, but as soon as you hit the atmosphere, which is spinning with the space, you should get slammed with what we call wind shear and flying. 1,000-mile-an-hour blast of air somewhere.
I think you'll understand. We had 3 pilots, including pilot LX on, and they all said there's absolutely no way they could fly if anything was spinning.
Yeah, that I was the one.
I think you'll agree with that, as you're a pilot.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. That's where I first posted that statement on that episode about asking them to putting a 360 camera in the cockpit, and I was like, well, if he could go out during the high noon time anywhere and take his pictures or videos to see where the moon is at high noon, is it behind him, above him? You know, where's the moon in reference? If you're over that part of the country at noon, the moon should be or the sun should be above you, and if it's not directly above you at high noon, then there's something fishy there. Not 93 million miles away.
Who is this to? Pilot LX?
Yeah. You had him
Yeah.
on.
I tried to say that you can't put a camera on, because we asked him this, because Stan, I'm not sure if Stan's in the chat room anymore, but Stan so wanted any footage, just do anything, just give it to me. But he was very loath to commit himself.
Yeah, well,
and he said basically the camera would have to be mounted outside the plane.
I think he said you can pretty much put it like on the instrument panel on the top, just so it will get the view out in front of the plane. Like he says, it'll do the whole 360, but you'll be able to get anything out of the windshield. You should be able to do that. But I was just saying, even with his regular cameras that he's doing his videos with, if he pictures of the sun at high noon, where he's at, if he's ever up at noontime, it'd be interesting to see where the sun is when it's supposed to be directly above you. Is it above you, or is it off somewhere else? Because he's got a camera.
It's very refreshing hearing you talk like that, because these are all the things that you kind of realize. I've got footage. They're outside and they're both trying to turn around and they're trying to get a picture of them together. And then he touches the ISS space station. It's just material. The whole thing moves. And it's a store cupboard gone wrong. And everywhere, I think what it is when you thought it was real, the wires probably made it look high tech. And now you know it's fake. It just looks pathetic.
Yeah, it's like people say is like you never thought to look at it. You've always known about NASA and their stuff, and you see it and look at it, but you never think about it. You never even think that they're possibly faking this stuff. And now you can't.
I've got something to ask you, Don. You've been in the military, right? Now you know that NASA or the space station will be militarized. Would they allow those women to have hair like that?
Military regs, most girls wear short hair because of the regs. It can't be down below your collar, so they always have to wear it up in a bun or something. But there are regulations on hair. You can have long hair, but when you're in uniform, it always has to be tied up. But I can't see anybody out in space wanting to have that long hair and like say it doesn't move like it should. A swimming pool, you can see a girl's long hair in a swimming pool out floats around. It should do the same thing in space.
Yeah, it should float around like that. They've had their hair sort of permed, haven't they? So you'd never know when she's jogging or doing her exercises or showing you the loo. You'll never know whether they're doing that on Earth or in the aeroplane.
Yeah. And then I see some of the videos, they suggest they are doing them hanging upside down. Because whenever you see...
Yes. I'm starting to watch them now, looking at it upside down, thinking, are they upside down? They almost look. They look so strange sometimes.
And you see that ball.
He's kind of standing there, and he looks like something stuffed up. Excuse me, this is rude, but he's got something stuffed up his bottom or something. Because he just looks so weird. And then as they pan down, his feet aren't there. His feet are transparent. You think, but he doesn't look right. He looks like he's hanging upside down.
It looks like he's trying to hold something together, like all the blood's going to his head.
Yeah. And they hover there. They almost sit in their harnesses. They cross their feet and they sort of sit back a bit as if they're almost sitting in a seat.
Yeah, it's like they're just hanging on their string.
Yeah, they're in their strings.
They're puppets.
And the other thing as well is, I watched one of them, he's pouring honey out. Like Well, weird. You know, it's stuck in the middle of the air. The honey didn't drip. It just came out of the squeezy thing and it sort of stuck there in midair. And I was thinking, this is what would happen to us. I don't know how they're doing it with the honey and the water, because we're not moving the same as them. But I'm sure if we were in it and the water was moving like that and the honey was moving like that, our bodies would move like that.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
Yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on. But they're getting better
And
at
it sounds like an aeroplane. Like I've done another one now a few weeks ago. I put it out. It just sounds like he's sort of swimming around in there, and then you can hear the engines of the aeroplane. You can hear them.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That thing is not making a sound like it's going 18,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I'd seen a video where the guy was pointing out the sound like you're inside a jetliner or G plane.
Yeah, that's because it is. But I was wondering, right, that just because they might show us a 737, it doesn't mean they haven't got a 747. And that's what they're using. They're using something like a 747 to do it. You know, something that's got a much bigger body on it, and then they can go down, up, and around, can't they? Because those things have like floors in it. So they just use like a set. I'm not saying it is, but they've used something like that to do it in.
They could just have the whole interior of the airplane as a green screen.
Mm.
And then they just put whatever background they want in.
Yeah, that green screen is obvious because they stand there and nothing behind them is moving. Nothing's waving or moving, and it's just stuck there. It's pathetic.
I like the point that someone made that, you know, what engineer would build something like that space station with all the wires hanging out like that. OSHA would have a field day with that.
Can you imagine it? Whoops! I've tripped over and I've pulled the main wire out. We're going down. And also there's millions of wires on the outside. Who would put them on the outside?
That's where Jaron always goes after him. Says, why would they put something put the film canisters on the outside of the plane? He says, would you put the film canisters on the outside of a submarine where you'd have to go out of the sub to recover the film and come back in?
It was somebody like Jay Dreamers. I forgot to ask him that, but he's done so many videos, he's probably forgotten. But someone noticed they've put this kind of balloon outside the space station. How would that work in a vacuum?
Well, a balloon is you just put a little pressure in it, and the vacuum will suck the pressure out. You know, like your balloon.
It's part of the ISS space station. They use it. They're in it, but it's a balloon.
Yeah, it's just a pop-out tent on the outside of the space station. But yeah, it'll pressurize from the interior pressure, but up to the vacuum of space. Never.
What I suggest people do is they go and pick Bowen outside. The first trip outside is with someone else, but it's Bowen's, Bowen's first. What do you call it? It's not a walk, is it? Space, whatever it is. And I think it's a couple of hours long. Just look through that and look at it again. You can see flippers. You can see extra torches. You can see paused astronauts. You can see they touched the material ISS space station's material. There's also stickers on the outside. They put big stickers, and you can see one of the stickers. The edge of it is just peeling away a bit. And you think, yeah, right. Yeah, right, there's a sticker on the outside.
All they got to start doing now is putting advertisements up there for like Kentucky Fried Chicken and Pizza Hut and the Golden Arches and McDonald's. They put on the outside of that.
You know, was it the human burgers?
Yeah,
that's the other thing they say, isn't it? That they're humans.
Yeah.
And it made me think of that movie Soylent Green. Yeah. You actually know that movie? That was a movie that actually all the animals died on the planet, and the people were actually eating humans, but nobody told them. They were telling everybody it was some kind of meat substitute. And in the movie Silent Green, at the end, somebody starts investigating, and then at the end, he sees that actually the food that everybody's eating is made of humans.
Great.
Soylent
Never
Green. Never seen it? Soylent Green. It's an old movie, 60s. Maybe, I think 70s, 60s.
Surprised Hollywood hasn't done a remake of it yet.
Soylent Green.
Anyway,
I can actually...
How can water be representative of a vacuum? They're completely different things. And then we've got the bubbles.
I don't know how water would react in a vacuum. It would disintegrate. It would
Bubble.
Because water has a lot of air in it, you know. Between every molecule of water, there's air trapped. That's part of, even in Stan Meyers' fuel cells, what he makes, when you separate the hydrogen and oxygen, you get hydrogen, oxygen, and ambient air and other air and water. It's, you know, it's how fish survive. You know, their gills pulls the water molecules out of the air molecules out of the between the water. That's how. So there's like, so if you have a drop of water in space, it would literally disintegrate. There'd be nothing left.
Do you think those astronauts have been given a drug and they really believe that they're there?
No, they know they're not there. They know that they're lying for a greater purpose of something that they may not know why. I guess Mark Sargent probably puts it best. You know, they're military. They do what they're told. They're probably told you don't have the rank to know. You don't have the need to know. You're going to fake this, and you're not going to ask why. And we're going to pay you well for doing it. Who knows? But I don't know if they know that it's space is not real, or told you're faking.
All those people sitting in that control room, all believing they're helping some astronauts in a swimming pool.
Yeah, those guys, they would believe, because what are they looking at? They're looking at a monitor. They won't know any different as long as the data
You know
coming in.
I've seen some high altitude balloons at night, and it looks like some of the stars are below the high altitude balloon. The balloon's at 17 miles up. Some of these stars are below, so say 15 miles. You've got those great big observatories with those great big telescopes in them, and they're telling you they're light years away. It's yeah, right. They're miles away.
Yeah. That's like the moon's supposed to be 238,000 miles away, but with your eye, you can see the craters on the moon.
Probably, what is it, 238? Take the naught off. It's 23 miles away.
Oh, yeah. That and then that and then being able to see, well, even if the moon's 2,000 miles across, you couldn't see that. Look at the images from the International Space Station. You look down, you can't see detail like that at 250 miles, 138,000 miles away,
Yeah.
and you can see better
And
detail.
yet, when you're standing here and you look up, you can see the craters with your naked eye.
Yeah, but you can't see any definition or detail on the ground from the space station. Not like that.
Once I caught them using, because obviously Chris Monk says it's a bit like a biscuit. They were using a biscuit disc thing. Also, the way they show you the moon rises and that, it's just ridiculous. There's just no way it would look like that on there. Anyway, They actually caught one with the zigzag going up, and the moon was zigzagging, and FPVs wondered about what that means. In his own work, and you're just thinking, just the whole thing is just a joke. Those wires get me. Those wires.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Well, I think I'm probably going to have to go, and I've got the internet. I've turned off the Wi-Fi, so the wife hasn't been able to get on the internet since she's been home.
Oh.
She's dying to get on the internet.
Well, I really enjoyed talking about the NASA bit, because obviously, that thing needs to be closed down. They could feed the world with it. They could do, well, you know what they're doing with that money, creating all the fake wars and lies and everything. But
I'll be willing to bet that a lot of that money that goes to them is funneled out somewhere else. I doubt that they're
Fake
spending.
wars? Probably
No,
to look after all the bases around the world.
no, it's probably covert co-ops. Secret projects. Military projects. They're probably funneling the money somewhere else. It's probably not all being used at NASA.
Yeah, FPV's work shows
Yeah.
that basically the sun and the moon are working from the land. There's a grid system underground, and this is how they're working. And the reason they're putting the chemtrails up is they're looking for the halos. They're looking to see. It's not something we could actually see with our naked eye, but the halos are there. And the barium causes these fake sun dogs, which is then a halo. And all they're doing is they want to back manufacture it, engineer it. And this is what FPV, and he's done masses of work. Maybe we can show you a bit of that next time. But and then, like Stan's work, no matter how he does it, the sun or the moon's coming out of the ground and it goes into the ground in your perspective bubble. They're just not telling the truth on nothing.
I had heard a while ago when I was researching Stan Meyers stuff that NASA was using his technology on the space station for water on the space station. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. Of course they were. In their dreams.
Yeah. So.
Oh, well, we've got masses to talk about on another Hangout then, because, NASA's always a good subject to talk about, because we all know that that's fake, for sure. It's been a real pleasure, Don, and big flat earth hugs to you and your family, and greetings. I can't say Merry Christmas anymore when you learn what Christmas is about, but greetings. Sure. And after Christmas, I'll ask you to come back.
No problem. Appreciate you guys having me. It's always nice to be on something as big as you guys. Like I said, I met Jaron and them all down at the conference, and Jaron's been trying to do that laser test, and he was going to do all the polls and posts. I was the one that told him to get rid of all that junk and just do what he was doing. So the idea he was doing with the test he got from me, I gave him that idea. So I'm following him. I got to meet him and tell him, and he goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right." He said, "Yeah, that was a way better idea than I had." So glad to help out.
And that's
cool.
That's great that you have a conference that you can exchange information and help each other.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yep.
Get it out to the masses.
Indeed, that's what we are trying to do, to make people aware and get it out to the masses.
We're trying to get information out. Everybody,
right.
People we're meeting are all part of a puzzle, because each one connects to the next or connects to someone else. We're trying to build a community.
And that's why with this Stan Meyer stuff, once I got all this documentation made up, I sat on it for a while because I didn't want to step on the toes and mess up his deal afterwards. So I waited a year and nothing come of it. So then I said, all right, it's safe enough. I put it out there. I gave it to the world. I didn't save it for myself. Everybody wants to keep that stuff for themselves. They don't want to share it. And it's like, no, I'm going to put it out.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I better go. Wife might be getting a little.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been really nice to talk to you again. And Daredevil, you are.
Yeah, well, it was nice meeting all you folks.
Yeah.
The quiet ones are always the worst ones, aren't they, Don?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys have a great night now.
Hey, neat. Have a great night.
And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, just give me a email sometime if you want to talk again. I'm open anytime.
Well, could you send me those pictures of the moon for Stan?
Yeah, if I can, I might have to figure out how to send them because they're generally big and they may not go through email too well. But I'll see what I can do and I'll get them to you however I can. There's, like I say, there's maybe a dozen pictures. They might give him something else to research. It's a different picture from most of the stuff. Yeah, it's a different image than what he's gotten. It's from a P900, so they're JPEGs, but typical solar filter. They're just Mylar, and it might help with his research a little better.
Oh, comments in the chat room, Don. Stan says, nice one, Don. And Mark says, top class, Don. Thanks a bunch.
Well, thanks a lot.
Oh, sorry. And the best says, thanks, Don.
Like I say, I appreciate the time.
We appreciate yours too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Good night then.
Good night.
No, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Don. Ooh, that was brilliant. Can I just say we've been going 4 hours now and it's 1:30 in the morning and I've got a really long day tomorrow. Do you mind if we actually end the Hangout, guys?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Hey, shout out to Glass Dojo for Parents. He also says thanks, Don. Flat Accord. Who else? There's Pete. There's P900, Sandra. Anyway, an FPV on Joey, I can see in the chat room. We're back tomorrow about 9 o'clock. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks to everybody and listening, watching. The guests. Don was lovely. Artists, Patricia, Judith. Who else was on? Oh, yeah, Joe and also Flat Trotters. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Flat Earth hugs to everybody. Bye.
Bye. Good night.